All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Serious Angler Podcast, powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. Back with the captain, Mr. Andy Full. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Agbrett. Andy, what's going on, homie?
Week off, essentially, holidays. 4th of July weekend is one of the non-negotiables I have for clients. I'm like, I'm not going to go out there and wreck my bass boat and get possibly run over by some drunk dummy in a cabin cruiser. So speaking of that, what was it on Friday? I think was the last day I was on Lake Erie. We're coming in and there actually was a boat accident behind the walls on Lake Erie. And it was a cabin cruiser, ran up on top of another boat. Yeah.
Okay?
No, everyone was okay. But I come in through the middle gap and there's like sheriff and Coast Guard helicopters, Coast Guard boat. And I'm just like, what is going on? And there's just like a big cabin cruiser just floating in the middle. And like the dive team was there. So I'm like, oh man, somebody's like, unfortunately got really hurt. And we go in and I talked to one of the paramedics afterwards. And they're like, yeah, the cabin cruiser just rolled up on the back of a guy as he was trolling. It's like, oh gosh, that's great.
Well, dude, in that turn in that gap, like people fly.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not like, obviously you can't stop like that fast.
Well, it wasn't even there. It was
that corner.
It was in the middle of the break walls, like inside the harbor walls where it happened. Just guys, when they have those big boats, they don't pay attention. They're like, everyone will move out of their way. And that's just not the rules of the road when you're on the water. So unfortunately, there's a lot of people that shouldn't have a boat that do, and accidents happen. So
yeah. Part of it's kind of annoying when New York changed the rule of like everybody has to have their boater course, but at the end of the day, I'm actually really happy that they made that change, because not that everybody even knows about it, or they probably don't even enforce it. Honestly,
they do. The Coast Guard will write tickets if you don't have your boater safety course.
Slap on the hand tickets, or are we talking like hefty tickets?
It's a pretty decent ticket. And I got lucky with my Marine merchant credential, right? So I didn't have to take the New York State boater safety class because I supersede that with my credential from the federal government. Yeah. So it's kind of nice, but I'm just like, man, like, I don't know what's worse, cabin cruisers or sailboaters that are under power, not underneath mast power or wind power, because technically there's two different terms for them, when and who has the right of way and et cetera. And
wake boats over top the wall.
Yeah. Wake boats
he's all day over a wake boat.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Honestly, like jet skiers, they're annoying because they'll just do circles around you and do a bunch of stuff. Like there's one tournament
they don't damage that much. They're just like they're like a mosquito, man. That's all it is.
It's like a mosquito or a wasp that won't sting you, but kind of just like floats around your head, and you're like, "Get out of here!" A fly.
Yeah, it's like our guests for tonight when they're on live and they have a drone up above their head, where it's just a constant annoyance right there buzzing over top of your head.
Speaking of drones, real fast, going out a complete rabbit hole. I saw a post earlier from Florida Man that a guy shot a Walmart drone in Florida because he thought it was spying on him. So he walked out of the house, waved at it, and it didn't go away. So he shot it. And he's going to jail or facing a $10,000 fine.
Aren't they trying to like ban drones anyways?
Well, it was a Walmart delivery drone in Florida. So like Florida's
delivery drones?
Yeah, I guess there's a Walmart delivery drone thing in Florida, and the guy just popped a cap in it.
I can't really blame the guy, to be honest.
I would have been mad too. Like, get that thing out of here. He's like, I waved at it and it didn't move, so I went and got my gun. And I waved again and still didn't move, so I shot it. And apparently, I'm a good shot.
That's actually incredible, though. To be honest, I didn't know that was a thing, and that was probably the last state that I would think to incorporate the flying delivery drones. So
capitalism, man. However you can make money, Florida's the place to do it. So
yeah, I guess so.
No taxes.
You got the Florida man that's going to shoot everything.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. It's hilarious. He's like yelling at the sheriff's on his porch. He's like, apparently I'm getting a fine or going to jail.
That's crazy, man. Well, dude, this is definitely a week for people that, especially for two of our guests for tonight, Carl and John, coming back from Smith Lake. When you're on those rowdy lakes, especially this week, be careful if you are going to go out. Be smart about it. Even if you're being smart, just remember there's other people that aren't. So just have some fun this week. It's a great time. I'm pumped because my parents came up from Florida, so we're gonna go see them.
Enjoy.
They got a Airbnb down near Ellicottville, so we're gonna go and hang out, and it's gonna be a good quality family time. And if we're gonna go fishing this weekend, though, I'm excited for that. Some of those lakes that boats won't be on, and get away, have some fun. But we got a great show for tonight. We got 3 different guests. I can't remember the last time we had 3. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a long one for you guys tonight. We're gonna kick things off with our first guest here in a second. We got Carl Jocumsen joining us. But before we do, because it's July 4th, of course, there's always July 4th sales, and we like to tell you guys how you can take advantage of it and save some dollars if you're looking to get any of these products.
That one is a good one.
Yeah. And first and foremost, that is the Blackfish Gear is running a July 4th sale where you can get up to 50% off, half off their rain suits. So take advantage of that while you can. Links down below. And Omnia, as always, is running a crap ton of sales. And here's what I encourage you guys to do is go to Omnia and just go to the new arrival tab. I literally, this is almost like a daily thing for me at this point, where I go to the new arrivals and I see what is coming in.
Can you show them where to click on the new arrivals just so they know?
I think it's right under the first landing page. Let me pull it up here. I don't want to take up too. Yeah. So yeah, you literally go to Omnia homepage and you have the dashboard right there. There's a shop by lake under it, bestsellers and new arrivals. Go to new arrivals and you can see all the sneaky stuff that's coming in that people don't realize out just yet. You can take advantage of it. Make sure you use our code Series 10 and you can save some money off of it too. I'll drop a link down below, but I don't want to take up too much time because I'm excited to get our first guest on here. And I think without further ado, let's bring him on here. Mr. Carl Jocumsen. What's going on, sir?
Hi, boys. Good to be back.
Welcome.
It's good to be here.
On a scale of 1 to ridiculous, how bad was the boat traffic on Smith?
It was nothing like what they were saying.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't as bad, dude. There was, from what they were talking about to what it was nowhere near. We got pretty lucky. It got overcast and it got like a little bit it wasn't like full sunshine, beautiful. And it just, I don't know. I'm sure the guys on Sunday and the guys on the main lake might have experienced it a little bit worse, but I actually found fish in like these little pockets and creeks, and you had 1 or 2, but it wasn't like that continuous just one after the other. It was not like that. It didn't affect my fishing at all.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, it was way better than what everyone was saying it was going to be in all aspects, like fishing, fish numbers, fish size. It was a cool event. Just I think a few people struggled to keep their fish as healthy as they'd like. But I figured out a system and it worked for me, and that my fish were super healthy. I couldn't catch them out of the live well at the end of the day. And if you could do that, and have it I like those challenging events and I like the heat. So it just throws like something different in there. But number one is fish care, and everyone needs to get on the same page of like what works, because it's crazy. Like, talk to one guy, this guy, hey, no ice, this ice, keep it on recirc, pump new water in, don't pump new. It's crazy how every single pro has a different set of systems, and it doesn't work or it works. So you've got to kind of find what works for you. But for me, my fish were all healthy, which was really cool.
That's good. Yeah. Well, that speaks a lot to the equipment you run too. But yeah, that's weird. Like, there's not like secrets or anything that pros have fish care, right? Like
it's not everyone trying to share and help, but it's like someone will say to me like something, and I'm like, that's the opposite to what I'm doing. So it's weird, but you know, just so anyone watching, what I did was I put ice in my live well. I think this is the deal, and I've talked to the Johnson, I've talked to everyone, and I feel like I've got it down now. You've got to put you put that recirc button, your black round button that has empty, you know, fill and recirc. Put it on recirc in the morning before you back that boat in, so no water can get in there. It's going to be dry, no boat ramp water, where you're fishing. And then I put a 16-pound bag of ice in there, and I put two of the things of G juice in there. So it's just sitting in there with nothing. Now I run to my first spot, which is down where the fish are, where it's clean, clear water. And straight away when I get there, I fill everything up, and I filled my live well, and then I keep my pumps on. And the more you keep them on with no fish in there, the more oxygen and everything it's putting in there, because nothing's actually using it. So the water gets full of oxygen and all the things that it needs to keep those fish alive. And then I turn the fill off, and then I put it on recirc continuous, and I just let that water stays in there all day then, and I just top it up with ice if I see that temperature come up, and a little bit of G juice all day, and keep it going. And dude, my fish were annoying on balance beams because they were so healthy. They were thrashing all the time. And I'm like, and it was like I was weighing all of mine on the Rapala scale, but it got to where like it was ounces. So even if it was close, I had to balance beam them. And all of my fish swam away, and all of my fish were healthy at the end of the day. When I tried to get them out of the live well at the end of the day in the bag, they're healthy. So that was my little system, and it worked.
That's cool, man. Are you the cubed ice, or do you try to do like the little, like the water bottles and things like that?
I just put straight ice in there because I talked to, you know, the guys that said, and G juice sort of counteracts any of that chlorine or whatever they say that's in there. But I think it just, with the G juice and the mix and all of that, it just doesn't do it. And then the conservation clips, and keep them pumping, and just don't put that new water in there, and just try and keep them cool. And it worked.
Yeah, I've seen some different things done. One of the really great guides here in New York, I think he's still guiding, Dean Meckes. When I was in the boat with him, I drew him in a local Bass Nation as a co, and one of the things I learned from him, you would take old sherbet containers and fill them with ice, so that you would have one big block of ice, so that it would melt over time. And he put those in. He had like he had an older Ranger, and you'd have like the meat thermometer that you could have. It was crazy whole system for me.
Yeah, like, you want to know the temp, because you want to like knock it back. You know, if the water temp's 95, you want to knock it back about 10, and then the biggest thing is keeping it consistent. Like the way you'll kill them is if you run out of ice. Now I learned that. So like you have to keep it cool the whole time. You can't run out of ice and then let that temperature come back up. That's what's going to hurt you. So you have to have enough. And what Brandon does, and what I've done because of him, is put a temperature gauge from your Hummingbird in through and drill it through your live well and poke that temperature gauge in there. So one side of your graph will say your water temp for outside, and the other side will show your live well temperature.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. That's the deal. Yeah. Otherwise, you can just buy like one of those pool floats. You know, it's a pool temperature float. I have one in the cold plunge, and I'll pull it out and be like, oh, it's 30, 38. It's going to be cold. and you can just drop that in, and you can pull that out, and it'll give you a pretty good range. But you just want to just keep that temperature consistent once you get it there.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Well, we got some hammers in the comments here. We even got MPFL champ Mike Corbishley asking if you do a fizz or fin clip.
So the spotted bass, they were just swimming they were literally going from 40 foot to the surface and back down. They didn't need anything, and I just put them in there, and I didn't I left them. And some of them got on their side, but like as soon as you went near them, they just instantly got up and were
sounds like the spot to me.
so I left them. I only fizz if and the only time I really fizz is those smallmouth that are constantly down deep and they're sitting there for long periods of time, and then you're pulling them to the surface like reasonably quick. I'll generally fizz them, and if you do it straight away, like literally sometimes I do it when the lure's still in their mouth. Like when I had a really good event at St. Lawrence in that Toyota series, I came second. I would like grab them and just sit them down, and like the Ned rig would be in their mouth, and I'd be like fizz them, pulling the hook out, and like those fish I couldn't catch out of them alive well either.
Yeah.
If you put them in there and let them settle for a bit and then try and fizz them because they're floating, that seems to be a bad system.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, you got to do them then and there.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be. I know Bass tries to do, and I feel like they do a decent job. Mostly more when you guys go up north, you hear about it with like fizzing and things like that. But I think they do a good job in regards to fish care. But to your point, I think there definitely needs to be some sort of angler.
Get everyone on the same page of what like actually works.
Like a standardized system. Like this is what works. Do it, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like with the biologists and stuff that are involved in this sport, I feel like with Gene and stuff, there's got to be something that's either recommended or something like that. But
it's all different because like if a guy ran up shallow up wherever and caught largemouth out of 1 foot, you don't want to freeze that fish. He's living in 95-degree water.
Right.
But if you're catching spots in 30, 40 feet, then he's living in that cold water and wants it cold. So like there isn't a set system, I guess, that like is set for every single fish. You're gonna have to adjust it depending what you're fishing for.
Yeah, that's more that Andy, I'd love to keep pushing on this platform too is fish care, and I think that's something to be talked about more. But it's cool that your system's working out, Carl, and that's a really cool tip about the putting
dude, if one died, I missed the cut. I made the cut by 3 ounces. Swindle missed the cut by 1 ounce. So like, and then I was in a 3-way tie in it, like dead, and I was the last. So like when I was watching day 2, I'm like, I'm gonna be out, and I caught the same weight as 2 other guys. Like he could have bumped me out, and so like one of those dead fish could have cost me 10 grand, and Gman had a dead fish and it cost him 10 grand.
Oh, jeez,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
man, 1 ounce on that lake hurts. Like it was like they talked about obviously all week, but like how stacked those weights was unbelievable.
It was stupid. I've never seen anything like it, And then I upped my weight by 1 pound, and I was only just out of the cut, and then I almost missed the cut. Like they caught them better on day 2, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Well, speaking on Gman with the Fear My Heart incentive, dude, that was one. I was watching that weigh in live, and that was one of the coolest freaking things, man.
Yeah. Gives you the
walk us through that. I mean, obviously, Gman, I feel like these kind of things you see out of him almost every event. I mean, to your point, he could win at every single event.
Yeah.
Gerald being Gerald, but walk us through, what the reason was for giving him that, for anybody that wasn't tuning into the event, why he won the Fear My Heart incentive for Smith.
Yep. So Gman won the $1,000 Fear My Heart incentive, and he come in on day 2. And he had a little bit better day, but he knew he was going to be on the cut line, but he kind of knew he was probably going to be outside the cut. And for the general public, if you don't know, like when you're out in the back and everyone's catching him, and especially for Gman, that's his local lake that he has lived there. Like he feels like would have felt like that's his opportunity to win. And so for him to like have a couple tough days, he's out the back, guys have caught him. And so it's not as simple as a lot of people think. We are hurting out the back. We don't want to, when you're having that, it's as tough as any like high competitive sport. The last thing you want to do is like put on a brave face. It's really tough to do. Mm-hmm. And for Gman to sort of like, you all get a wake up call because you end up realizing that you're doing something that you love and you're getting to fish for a living. And then when you run into this kid, Aiden, who is fighting cancer at 13 years old and has had chemo, and is fighting these battles, but is just so stoked to be there and can't believe that he's going to get to meet his hero and Gerald, it really snaps you out of it very fast. And Gman spoke about that because he had to put on that brave face, and he did. And he just does such a good job with his fans and anyone that gets around him. You would never know. And most people don't know that when you go to his camper or he's at his boat, it's one after the other. People are looking for him, finding him. They'll knock on his camper door at night. Like he gets a lot of pressure from a lot of people because people just love him. He's at the pinnacle of the sport as far as fans go. But that's tough to deal with when you're trying to compete and you're trying to keep your head in the game of this. You've got a job, and he's got sponsors, and he wants to be competitive. And so he could just win it every time for all of the things that he constantly does. At Murray, I had a guy come up to me and say that he had this special needs kid, and he wasn't even a fisherman. He was camping at the campground, and his son was special needs, and he was a handful. His dad said, "My son's a handful." He was walking over to G-Man's boat and picking up rods and saying, doing all these things. And he said he's not comfortable around people because he knows he was different, but G-Man treated him so well that he felt comfortable around G-Man, and he did all of these things for him. And he said, and he found me, this guy, and said, I looked into the fishing and I saw this thing you've got going. And he's like, I want to put the vote in for that guy. He wasn't even a fisherman. He'd found like our Fear My Heart incentive through being a camper at the campground, saw how G-Man had treated his son, and then put it in saying, I think he should get it. That was at Murray. And so fast forward to here, Aiden, he's 13 years old. He's fighting an incurable cancer that is I think it's behind his eye. And he's already had chemo. And through Dan O'Sullivan, he just is a huge fan of G-Man's and wanted to meet him. Dan asked G-Man, he said, come on, bring him on. And instead of anyone else could have went and shook his hand and said, hey, mate, met him and continued on with his day. No, G-Man gets him, brings him through the whole weigh-in line process, brings him up on stage, gets to hold the spotted bass up with him. And G-Man doesn't talk about his tough day, his missing the cut. It's all about Aiden. And so when I rang him and said that I knew what he was going to do, but said want to give the $1,000 to G-Man for that, and then G-Man wanted to give the $1,000 to Aiden. So that's as good as you get.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, you want to talk about what your Fear My Heart incentive embodies? I feel like that's it.
Yeah, that's the pinnacle right there. Is as good as it gets. So yeah.
Well, I think in that too, like there's a double winner here. Like I think obviously from our eyes, you see the story of G-Man being G-Man, who we've seen him do countless times. Obviously, you've seen way more behind the scenes, but as a fan perspective, Andy and I see it all the time with people that love Gerald. Like my first ever classic I went to, one of my biggest takeaways was watching weigh-ins, the amount of people that stood up when they knew Gerald was coming on stage and would leave when he was done.
Yeah.
And it was they were just there for him.
Yeah.
But so obviously him winning that for what he did there is incredible. But also Aiden being also like a Fear My Heart winner for that event. Like he's and not even that event. Like he is Fear My Heart. So I think
exactly.
It speaks loud, dude. I award or not, what you're doing with this is incredible, which is why I've been the annoyance in your talking to you about, dude, I want to talk about these stories on the show, because I think with all this negative crap, like this is the stuff that's awesome to share, that needs to be shared more. More people need to listen to, because there's a lot of people like yourselves that are going out there doing good things like this.
Yeah,
deserves to be told.
there's tons of it. And, you know, I wanted to put it in that post that I wrote, but I didn't want to take away from Gman or Aiden. But I was like, you can find negative stuff as easy as you want. And you can also look for it and you will find it and it will find you. You can do the same amount of effort and look for the positive things, but you're not. No one is. They're clicking on the podcast that have the clickbait, that has the story that they want to see that's going to be about this guy and about this negative thing and about that. And so you're feeding it yourself because you're actually looking for it. And you can do the exact same thing. When people complain about Instagram, I don't know what they're talking about because my Instagram is full of savages, inspirational people. All I do is look at it and I'm like, I need to go for a run. I need to be on the water more. I need to compete more. I have no ill feeling on Instagram at all because everyone I follow is positive and getting after it and there's zero negativity. And if I see it, I get rid of it. And so I just think everyone in a whole has to do a better job at actually seeking. It's because you have to seek it out, even though it is there in front of us. We just have to do we do a really good job of seeking out the most negative thing because it sells, it's going to get views, it's going to get clicks. So we're chasing it. Why couldn't we do the exact same thing and seek out and look for the most best positive stories out there? They only come to light when they're right in front of us and we're like, oh, that was really cool, because it has to really be in your face. But those stories are there day in and day out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's one of the things that is very hard to do. And we talked about this in the recent show we had, John, but it's the thing of, you know, you can choose to see negative or see positive.
Yeah.
It's completely your choice. And if you decide to go down that rabbit hole, that's when you see all the negative.
It'll be there for you. It'll be waiting for you. It's
a much easier to chase the positive than it is to dig out of the negative.
And we had, we didn't get to talk about it, but we had Cliff Prince as the winner for Wheeler Lake. And what was interesting is we had a few different ones thrown up, and Scoot was here, that does all our shooting, Scott Argenbright. And he just looked at us and he's like, Cliff's got to win. And I was like, and we hadn't sort of mentioned Cliff because he'd just won and he'd done everything. And then when we thought about it, we're like, holy cow, no, he's the winner. And when we started talking about it and looking about how he won and his integrity and that little like speech he had about, he wanted people to know that like I find my own fish, and like that hit super hard. And that's something that the sport tends to look away from a lot too, is it's just about whether you're holding the blue trophy or whether you won or not. But there should be a big aspect of like, this guy does things the correct way, the right way. He found them himself. He went out in 2.5 days practice on a lake that he hasn't been on, and he figured them out and he caught them. That's what Elite Series fishing should be about and is about at the top. And so it's such an inspiration for like a lot of us that when he won, because you're just like, that's how I want everyone to be. Like everyone should be won like that. 2.5, 3 days of practice, figure them out. Who figured them out best in that time? And like I said in that post, he who's chased something for 6 months and not given up, a year and given up, 2 years and given up, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of non-stop one-track mind. This is what I want to do, and he bloody got it. Like, how awesome is that? Like, that's as good as it gets, and like that's better than the blue trophy, even though that's like the embodiment of it all. But he got it after 15 years. That's insane.
The clip that you guys shared where you can see his raw emotion, you know, getting emotional in the boat type of deal.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a lot for a minute, because like I feel, obviously I don't know Cliff. You guys get to see it behind the scenes, but from a fan's perspective, he comes off as a tough Southern boy. Like, I feel like it's very, very, very hard to get a guy like that to that emotional state, which shows the exact
shows they're the ones that shows what it means when you see a guy that wouldn't normally show that, and then he's doing it, and you're throat closes up and you're like, God, I know what he's feeling right now, even though you don't. Like 15 years or a lifetime, he's been thinking of it since he was a kid probably. And you can lose it at the drop. You can like, it's so hard to win. He had to catch him on that final day. It wasn't just his. He had to finish it off. And it's a cool sport, man. I love it when those stories happen and those things happen, because they're the ones that brought me to here. They're the ones that I watched on ESPN and I watched on Bassmaster and saw, and gave me the fire to be like, I'm going to give up everything and come over here, because those stories and the passion and the emotion that like those older guys showed from what it took. You can see what it took to get there in their eyes and their emotions. It's like, what did you go through to get here?
Yeah, dude, it's incredible. I absolutely freaking love this thing that you're doing with the Fear My Heart incentive, man. I truly do. I can't get enough of it. And I hope people are latching onto this thing. If you're not following the Fear My Heart page, you really, really need to, because it's just incredible stories that come out of each event. Yeah. And man, I'm looking forward to just seeing where this thing goes over the next several seasons, because it sounds like, you know, there's no stopping what you're doing with this thing. So it's
the first time I've really felt like, oh, this is the direction and how and the feel and the people getting behind it. It's not just my thing, and it's not just something I'm doing. It's like, this is something like everyone wants to get behind and see and hear the story. And I'm like, this is, who knows where it's going to go from here. So yeah. I have to give a huge shout out to Stacey Harvey. His company is Warrior Precast, and you know, he doesn't want any of the credit or anything, because we just had a conversation in my shop right here, but he's the one that is actually really putting the dollars and the idea behind it, and actually made it happen. Like, he was like, you make it happen and I'll support it. And so without a guy like that, it wouldn't be happening. Mm-hmm. So big shout out to him. And I'm sure there's going to be more support coming with it in the future, which I'm excited about.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate you taking time out tonight to come on and tell the stories here. And we're looking forward to, we're trying to get Cliff on the show soon as well, to hear, you know, from him too, and learn about, you know, especially from a guy like that you talked about, you know, finding fish on his own. It's a big respect factor, especially in today's age. But it's looking forward to getting the winners on here, the stories from Champlain and St. Lawrence. And what, I mean, dude, you're right there. I mean, you got the shot to get in Classic cut. Are you changing anything up for these, or are you just saying screw it, we're just going for it, boys?
I got to go for it now. Like, I saved my butt. You know, a lot of people don't know, but like I'm saving my career. I'm trying to save my career right now. Like, with points and everything, it's so competitive. I have to catch them, and it's crazy that it's come down to that. But like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about getting in the Classic, and I've done what I needed to do in the last two to give myself a shot. And I've put myself to where, like, there's a chance. And so I'd probably have to top 10 back to back or something like that, but it's doable.
It's always doable, bro.
Yeah,
you got this. We believe in you.
Yeah. Appreciate you, boys. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you soon, Carl.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Bye. You too.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I talk to Carl, I feel like, or listen to a show he's on, like, there's a few people that are like this, where if when I listen to him, I feel like I just want to go for a 2-hour run. I completely reorganize my life, put my head through a brick wall. Like,
run with like your 10-pound weights and like punch the sky as you're running.
Yeah.
With that full body.
Like my brain is just the full on like Rocky song after I talk to Carl. It's just
put the gray sweats on and go for a jog, bud.
That's right. I mean, he said it, like, his page is full of savages and badass people. Well, he's one of them on mine. So it's so cool seeing these stories come out. And you know, this idea, I think, and especially in today's age, is much needed. You're not running. Yeah. Actually, fun fact for you, so Jabberhammer is our friend Paul.
Paul's not running either, but
Paul's definitely not running. We love him though. I did go for a run today, so there you go.
Look at you.
Yeah, we've been on a pretty big health kick lately, so I'm feeling really good. But we'll save that for later. Enough of that right now, because we have 2 more guests for tonight. It's a fun show. It's already off to a great start. Thank you again to Carl for taking the time out. Seriously, one of the best professionals in this sport, on the water, off the water. So big kudos to him. Seriously, guys, you need to follow Fear My Heart. Like I say that for everybody that comes on here, but you really need to follow Fear My Heart because it's one of the greatest things going on in our sport right now that's not being talked about as much as it should anyway. So, running is for people who can't cook. I can't cook, which is why I'm running, Paul. That my wife is the cook. I grill. I can't. I'm a horrible cook.
Grilling is cooking.
I mean, I guess it's easy to flip patties back and forth. There's really not much art to it.
I mean,
Let's be honest here. She's the one that makes all the great meals. She meal preps everything for me throughout the week. I am so spoiled. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But enough of that. We'll save that. And let's bring on our next guest for tonight, who I'm super pumped to talk with here. First time on the show, Mr. Drew Gill. What's going on, Hammer?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Can't complain. First thing I got to say is I appreciate you being so patient with my horrible scheduling of podcasts. So I'm glad you're here.
You're good, man. I understand the dilemma. I mean, I'm definitely not the best scheduler myself. I kind of cram everything together. You know, the thing is so often, like, whenever people are trying to get all of this scheduling stuff done, it's often in very short time windows. And so you just kind of get everything lopsided, and it's totally understandable for sure.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, I feel like
don't give them any slack.
Yeah. 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 After your wins this past year, I feel like you probably went through the whole gauntlet. I saw you on a bunch of them. So, I mean, that's scheduling right there. It seems like you managed that pretty well.
Yeah, man. I definitely am nothing but grateful for it. But the first one was when I won Rayburn in February, and that one I had a tournament directly on the back end of it. I was going to the Toyota Series at Guntersville, and that one I didn't end up even getting to practice for because I was trying to get everything caught up. And this last one at Show On, I had a couple days. I think I had a travel day on the way to Champlain, and then I did some stuff in the evening while we were at Champlain when the sun was still out, even though it was 9 o'clock. But that was kind of the extent of that. But man, it's been awesome. I have no complaints whatsoever, but it's definitely a challenge at times. That's
awesome, dude. Yeah. So fun fact, a while back, your first win in 24, was it 24 technically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It was second week of February.
Okay. Yeah. So it was early on still. We had Becker on, I think it was 2 weeks before then. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, this kid, Drew Gill, you got to get him on the show. Because Becker's been on a bunch of times. And I'm like, all right, like, I'm going to reach out to him. We had the show scheduled. And I literally, like, during that event, go to DM you. And you win. And then the gauntlet begins of you on every show. And we never try to go and get those guys on. Because at the point when you're on, like, your 12th podcast, it's like, it's going to be majority.
It's all convoluted.
Yeah, man, you get to the point where you're kind of regurgitating the same information over and over again. So it's like you can find the same content on multiple different places. But I mean, at the time, you know, it's what everybody wants to do, so you do it. I mean, it's your responsibility, both to your sponsors and to yourself, to maximize it. But like, it gets to the point where I'm almost trying to rehash it all in a different way to come up with some original content.
Here, let me give it to you in Spanish.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I'm gonna learn American Sign Language just to where I can do it in that too.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, the ultimate professional. But being one of the younger pros out here, I mean, do you enjoy the media side, the off the water business side of it?
Dude, I really enjoy the interactions. You know, I'm a people person. It's definitely what I do. So as far as the interactions and social parts of it, I love interacting with the fans and everybody in the industry and all of the people that are behind the companies that support me and things like that. You know, obviously being new to it, the business side of it and the actual, you know, promotion and driving of, you know, marketing and sales for these companies is a bit of a learning curve for sure. I mean, you kind of, you know, when you step out here and you get to one of these tours and you're supporting or not supporting, you are being supported by all these companies and helping promote what they do. It's an adjustment for sure. Cause like you're trying to step in, you know, I didn't come from an industry background growing up. So it's kind of both stepping into it from a fishing side of things and stepping into it on the business side of things at the same time. And you got to kind of hit the ground running. So it's it's kind of it's a moving target for sure, but it's definitely a challenge that I invite. I feel like I've started to get the hang of for now, and it's something we all got to develop over time. But I'm looking forward to getting more into next year for sure.
Yeah. Well, dude, so we have a comment here, and so backstory is the shows that you did. I listened to a few of them: Bass Talk Live, Tackle Talk, and afterwards, both Panger and Andrew, the hosts over there, raved about you just being very professional, well put together. Like, and that's a great compliment, especially being one of the young guns in this sport. And so with that, we have a comment here from Bass Fanatic, who, if you hear us call him Scott Martin, he's not. We don't actually know if he's Scott Martin. We just somebody said that this guy is Scott Martin for fantasy fishing, so it could be Scott Martin. But he's
pretty sure it was Brennan. Calling him Scott Martin. Brennan Chapman.
Probably called him Scott Martin because he knew everything, detailed. And he said, "What did Drew do prior to fishing professionally?"
Well, Bass Fanatic, prior to fishing professionally, I was a professional college student. That's what I did. I cut people's grass when I had time, and I worked at a grocery store for like $7 an hour. So those were my big career things. As a 2-career kind of guy, definitely was trying to move my way up the corporate ladder, both in people's landscaping and in my local grocery store that ended up going out of business. But, so both of those ended up being dead ends, and that's why I kind of transferred into the fishing thing. Felt like, that was a good escape plan from the landscaping and the failed grocery store business. But, that was my endeavors beforehand for sure.
So basically you're saying is that store went out of business because you pursued fishing? That's why, because you left?
I don't know if that's quite the accurate rendition of the story, but it coincided.
Run with it. Just run with it.
Scott Martin's asking what your degree was.
My degree was in business marketing. And it's actually a degree that's still in progress for me. So, I stepped in the Bass Pro Tour in the spring of my senior year, and I still have a few credit hours to collect to finish the last semester of my college degree. So it's business marketing in progress.
That's impressive, dude. So did you just walk up with the big, Happy Gilmore check to the school and be like, "Hey, my tuition's paid off. Here you go."
Man, that would be definitely a strong statement if they really cared that much. But I don't think, for the most part, that the people at the admissions office really were concerned as to who I was, as long as the bottom line of that ended up getting filled out. But it's definitely gratifying to have all of that paid off and such. So that's a big thing for sure. I mean, really going into it, I wasn't one of those guys that was like, fishing or bust. This is going to work, or if it doesn't, I'm going to figure it out. Wheeling and dealing, being a used trailer salesman or something like that. Like I was going into it going, I'm going to go get my degree. I'm going to, start working toward, what we'll call the real world. And, I'm going to enjoy college fishing on the side as I do it. And the more I did it, the more I realized this is something I really want to pursue. And as I did, it just kind of, that once I pushed that ball and it started rolling downhill, it just kept going until we're where we're at now.
Yeah. So if you weren't fishing professionally right now, well, would you be in the industry, try to be in the industry, or is it different?
Yeah, that was the direction I wanted to go with it. As far as that goes, man, I'm not a naturally, I guess we'll say originally competitively, I wasn't an extremely confident individual. I felt like every time I caught him, it was kind of accidental or by chance. So I just kind of was setting up all of my contingency plans, and what I felt like I wanted to do was to go into the industry because I love bass fishing. I love working with the people in the industry and just the business of catching bass just as much as catching bass itself. And so that's what I wanted to do with it. And it, in a roundabout way, it's worked, but it's not in the way I originally planned, for sure.
Yeah, well, you hear that from a few different accounts in regards to the business marketing degree and how people think that's, especially from someone in your position getting into the industry, that it's a smart degree to have, beneficial, especially because, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you're a pro angler, but also you're a business. You're your own business. So it's, having that information and that know-how, at least a little bit of a strategic standpoint from having the degree, definitely, I feel like helps in the end to maneuver that, prepare yourself a little bit for the most part. I mean, do you feel like obviously you're only a year in, I guess, for your first season, but do you feel like the degree is helping you any in what you're doing now?
Man, it's I feel like it does set up the framework of what to expect from the professional side of things, as far as marketing goes, regardless of whether it's fishing or otherwise. It sets you up knowing what to expect in terms of what, the job of taking a brand or a product and exposing it to as many people as effectively as possible. It sets that situation up where you know what you're getting into. But as far as that goes, business classes are they're pretty rough. They're kind of vague because, the nature of business is everything is business. If you are in the business of making money, which is every company that's ever existed, you are in business, and every business has to be marketed. And so as a result, it's kind of vague. And that's where we get in the sticky situation. It was like, what college degrees are actually reasonable to spend your time and money on, and what college degrees are, really preparing you to be a functioning adult. And as far as business marketing goes, if you're extremely well rounded in the professionalism side, and you're able to relate well to people, and you're both willing to do that and be extremely personable, you've got most of that underneath you already. As far as the rest of it goes, it's just kind of formality. So it has kind of at least made it where I knew what I was getting myself into. But past that, the intricacies of the industry and things like that, no business marketing class can really prepare you for the intricacies of whatever specific industry you end up in. And in our bass fishing industry, we like to talk about it as this big, massive sphere and this whole world that we've engrossed ourselves in, because to us it's huge. But in actuality, when you start getting into it and you start meeting people and things like that, you realize how interconnected everything else is, and how networked every company is in this industry. And it really was something that I realized early on, especially coming from outside the industry and not like growing up with all these contacts and all these people that I interacted with, actually coming into the industry and like forging that as I went along. I mean, what is it, like the steps from Kevin Bacon thing? Like you're only ever 2 or 3 steps from anybody in this industry. And that's one of the most important things to understand, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like this industry is basically, it's a connection. You're one connection away from having what you want, or the position you want, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, that's very true, especially in the outdoor space. Like it's its own thing. There's the whole saying that I'm sure you've heard by now, where it's the fishing industry is always 10 years behind any other industry. It takes a while for us to get anything done. But yeah, I mean, dude, I think the foundations of the business classes can give you at least a common understanding of what you're going through, the different things you see. But yeah, I mean, today's age, dude, like when I talk to people that are, going through school, or they haven't gone through school, and they said, well, I didn't know what to do, so I just, picked a degree and went, or I didn't know what to do, I picked up a trade. I get more excited for the people that go the different route of the trade if they don't know what they want to do yet. Because honestly, you brought up the point of what degrees are actually worth pursuing, and it's that list is shrinking by the day. I feel like with school,
HVAC certificates, welders are much more needed than anything, really.
That's
or a
that's
doctor.
100% true. That was a big thing. I've spent the last couple years of my school at Campbellsville University. But backstory on me, I went to Wabash Valley College beforehand, which is a community college, and that was a big thing with a lot of our anglers at Wabash. Was a lot of them were getting trade certificates because they have an HVAC program, they have electrical engineering, they have diesel tech. I mean, they have a whole bunch of trade certificates that guys could get through the college, which allowed them to be able to fish competitively and still get that trade certificate that they were going for.
That's pretty dang cool. That is impressive.
I tell you what, though, that trades angle, there's so many guys in bass fishing that end up going that direction because they're handy individuals that, learn a lot of how to do these things from buying cheap boats when they're 14 and trying to figure out how to rig it up themselves. And they get through 3 or 4 years of building their own old boat because they couldn't afford anything better, and go, I'm pretty good at working with wiring or all of these different mechanical things, and they decide that's the direction they want to go. And so many of the guys that come into college fishing, if you have those programs, you're tapping into a whole nother group of those high school individuals that don't necessarily want to go the school route in terms of practical schooling and classes, and they want to go to the trades route. That was something that Wabash offered that was really intuitive.
That's freaking cool. I haven't heard of and I'm sure they were. I wasn't the greatest student, but of colleges providing that. That's yeah. I was in the business of staying awake during my business classes, so that was my problem.
Man, I was the exact opposite. I just slept. I didn't care. I was a sleeper. Every class, every study hall, I was out. Like I did not care.
Well, so I've seen, the bread and butter and the proof in the pudding that college fishing is churning out absolute monsters of pro anglers like yourself. You're becoming one. Obviously, we've seen it this year. You're fourth in AOY, your rookie season. Our next guest, John Garrett, is living proof of that as well. Jordan Lee, like the list of college anglers that are taking over the professional ranks is getting longer. So I don't ever want to take credibility away from college fishing, but at the same point in time, I feel like from a money standpoint, the trade side and finding a social media manager leaves you no debt. And basically, if somebody do your social media while you become handy with when you guys are trailering, driving and with the boats 100%. Throughout the year, I feel like that might be the most efficient route to cover all the bases. But then again, you can't knock the college bass fishing.
Yeah, my sales pitch to anybody that's looking to chase the college bass fishing route, things like that, is one. It's one primary angle, which is, are you planning on going to college? You take fishing out of it. Is a college degree your goal with your life over the next 4 years? Because if that's part of your goal, if that's where you see yourself at the end of 4 years being a college graduate, going into some sort of career field as a result of getting that degree, then college fishing is a fantastic value because you're already paying to go to school. So you might as well go to a school that's going to provide both the degree you need and, can support you from an angling perspective, because I got, probably between $28,000 and $35,000 worth of experience paid for by the school. Now, that being said, I invested far more than that into my schooling itself, but I was already planning on going to college and getting my degree. I wasn't going to college to go fishing and get a degree on the side, because I feel like that's a poor money decision. If you're looking into college fishing, you need to do it planning on going to college already, and then make your fishing decision after that, versus if you're just going to college to go fishing, that's a poor financial decision. But I mean, I'm living proof. I'm definitely not going to knock the college fishing angle, because I understand what it did for me, as an angler, especially going to community college the first 2 years and paying a very small fraction of what a lot of my competitors were paying to go to university and still get the same experience paid for, because it's the same, it's the same expense to go to the tournaments, regardless of what school you're coming from. And then, Campbellsville University provided me, I had a 250,000 mile vehicle at the time I went to Campbellsville, and they had school trucks provided. So I was able to use a school vehicle to tow my boat to tournaments and things like that. And got another, 12, 15 events paid for by them. And I mean, that's done worlds of good for me. And I mean, you've seen it through the Bethel program. You've seen it through Cole Sands and Jacob Fouts from Bryan. You've seen it through, Rob G, obviously. And then, my graduating class was me and Easton, Father Gill, and Tucker Smith. I mean, the list goes on. Like, it's unbelievable what college fishing has done in terms of producing quality anglers at a rapid rate.
That's a dang class right there.
Yeah.
Holy moly. You, Easton, and Tucker. That's a dang trio.
Yeah, which I think Easton's planning on super senioring next year, but as far as just being the same age.
He couldn't get enough of just messing with all these college
kids.
Can't
leave him alone. He can't leave him alone. It's pretty funny.
He said, "I'm back."
Yeah, the ones that didn't get that memo are not going to be happy when they show up to the bow ramp this fall and he's there.
Like, wait, I thought you graduated. And he's like, nope. Gotcha.
Master degree. Here we come.
100%. But I mean, it's hats off to him for continuing his education. And I mean, heaven knows we don't need Easton getting any more free bass fishing experience.
I don't know, man. He keeps the rate he's going. He's going to pay off any tournament he wants with all these checks he's going to rake.
Oh, yeah.
That kid's got a future and a half. But like, it's cool, man. I would love to. This might be like a Ken Duke question, but I mean, I think you're a fan of the sport in regards to. I'd be curious to see numbers wise the most successful class come out of college fishing. That would be very interesting.
That would be a really interesting question. I mean, it's one I got to think about. Like, you go the further back you go, I mean, you definitely got some very notable names. You got Jordan, Patrick Walters, you got Cody Huff and Garrett, Cole Floyd, like some very, very notable names. But they weren't, oftentimes they weren't as stacked together in terms of years, just because there weren't as many competitors back then. And really, a lot of guys didn't take, the majority of the field didn't take it to the level that the majority of the field does now. The majority of the field now is a bunch of sweats. Like, they're tryhards, they're skipping class, they're out there burning every dime they have and every dime their parents have to go fish a tournament with no payout. Like, it's unbelievable the dedication these guys have, and I admire the heck out of it. But yeah, that'd be a really good question. I mean, one class that was really notable for sure was the class that Rob G and Logan Parks came from. That class had them. It had Griffin Fernandez, who was a college standout. Griffin's fishing stuff around the house now, but he was unbelievable. Other guys that fished for McHenry that were just downright like top 10 every tournament guys. One of my travel partners that fished the invitationals, Cole Breeden, who Toyota Series champion, top 10 in the invitationals points right now. Like, that class had a lot of graduates that were extremely good. But that's a question really that I don't even think can be effectively asked until about 10 or 15 years from now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It'd be cool. I'm gonna have to text Ken Duke after this and see if this is something like he's tracking, because if not, it needs to be, because we've seen it happen like with draft class with NFL, things like that. This needs to be something as part of our sport.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. And
especially with the rise in popularity of high school and college fishing as well. Like,
yeah. I mean,
to do it.
From my perspective, like, I mean, the identification that people have with colleges and college sports teams, things like that. Obviously, our sport right now is not in a place to do it financially. But if these organizations could afford to actually televise the events during the college fishing season, that would be something that I'm sure a lot of fans would really identify with, because you've got the wide array of guys from, wrap boats, brand new boat every year, like, one step down from stepping into their professional fishing career. And you got guys out here in bay boats that are out here running around in their half saltwater, half freshwater boat, chasing them down, netting them with a blue mesh Walmart net and catching a big bag and putting it in a bait cooler that's on the front of the console. Like, I mean, it's a really crazy combination of anglers and equipment and things like that. It's just a really unique place. I mean, it's a free-for-all is what it is. That is what college fishing is in a sense. Is it is an absolute free-for-all.
It's kind of cool to see, though. I mean, it's different walks and different people that all share the same passion.
100%,
trying to
man.
compete. And but it is cool to see that, from a professionalism standpoint, not only you guys hammers coming out of college, but you guys also have a sense of how to present yourself. Like I was talking about earlier, that's some of the biggest takeaways I took from listening to shows you've been on. Is very professional, very well spoken. Same could be for Logan Parks. For I'll tease Rob G a little bit. You got a little bit more party in him than professional. I've seen some of the videos that Logan's put out. Him, John Garrett, that house that looks like a fun house. We'll talk more. With John.
Me and Rob are good buddies,
later. But it seems like the college sense is teaching you not only just the on the water, but it's teaching you a little bit off the water too. And maybe that's an alumni sense too, of maybe current pros that are trickling down, or if that's mentors. And actually, we have a question here from Bass Fanatic saying, who are or were your fishing mentors coming up?
Question.
I mean, personally, like in terms of involving themselves in my life and taking me fishing and making me want to go, was my dad first and foremost. I mean, for a lot of us, that's the same answer, but for my dad was the one that took me fishing all the time, made me want to go. It never turned into an unenjoyable experience, because I didn't grow up tournament fishing. Like, I think I fished my first tournament when I was 13 or 14. But growing up, we just went fishing. Like, it was just an enjoyable experience. Me and my dad would go on a Saturday and go reel in. I would reel in whatever bit, and he went bass fishing out of the front of the boat. And it was just something that, like, I really enjoyed doing. I came from I played a lot of sports growing up and things like that. And fishing was my way to kind of unplug from that competitive side. But over time, the competitive side leached into it for me. I'm a pretty competitive individual. And as soon as I discovered that that was a thing, that like I knew professional fishing was a thing from way back, but I didn't know like the local tournament scene existed until I was probably 11 or 12. And I was like, oh, tournaments are like right at my fingertips. I can go do this. And after fishing my first one, I was pretty hooked on it. I knew I wanted to fish tournaments for as long as I could. And you know, I started getting into it and started researching it and things like that. And I really started identifying with two guys in particular that I watched a lot, were Aaron Martins and Brent Ayler. And, you know, both West Coast guys, both spinning rod guys, and both guys I really enjoyed watching. Like, they were entertaining to watch. They spoke well. They were very educated. And you know, they were both individuals that I learned a lot from starting out. So I'd say that'd have to be my answer there. You know, really enjoy watching both of them. Still enjoy watching Brent. You know, miss getting to watch Aaron. Obviously, as a lot of us do. But those were mine for sure growing up.
I mean, dude, two guys that are very, very good to model yourself after from a skill standpoint, where it's, you talk about spinning rod, which they are extremely good at, but also, I mean, people talk about Aaron as one of the best flippers. That like a very underrated flipper.
That Havasu event that he won was a perfect example of that.
Well, and Ayler too. Like Ayler almost won the classic on Conroe flipping.
Yeah, and Ayler's caught a bunch of. I mean, this is an interesting statistic that I'd like to see more on, but I think, you know, from my perspective at least, I think Brent Ayler wins more big fish awards than just about anybody I know. Like, he's constantly catching giant ones. He's way up in our heavy hitters rank every year. He caught an almost 10-pounder at Santee this year. I mean, he's an unbelievable big fish angler and spends a lot of time with the casting rod in his hands too. But the spinning rod thing was something I personally identified with a lot, just because I came from a very heavy fishing pressure part of the country where spinning rods were not underutilized. They weren't utilized at all. You would, in any local tournament, you could show up and look at the front deck of every boat and you would never see a spinning rod ever. And I felt like that was an angle that I could take to try and make a few checks and catch fish behind people. Or like when the dreaded midday lull would show up, I could generate a couple bites in a weekend tournament, fishing around 40 boats on a 2-mile-long lake. And that was something that I definitely identified with. And as a result, you know, that they are both extremely versatile anglers that are, you know, were very proficient at what they did in every way, but they definitely made spinning rod fishing cool. You know, there were guys that threw a spinning rod beforehand, but when some of those West Coast guys like Aaron and Brent started to do it and bring it over, that's when I felt like it. Like, that's when, to my eyes, it started looking cool. Like it was cool. It was hip. It was coming from the West Coast. Brent's out here with his Converses on, reeling in a 7-pounder on a spinning rod. Like, that was cool.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy, so we work with Omnia Fishing, and Pete over at Omnia came on the show, I don't know, Andy, probably a month ago, and was saying that for their sales, they are selling more spinning rods than they are casting rods for the first time ever this year. That's tells you how times have changed a little bit.
That's pretty impressive for sure. But I mean, you know, it's you know, goes to show you, obviously everybody's learning, you know, new techniques to catch them that they've never used before. And spinning rods are so effective at throwing techniques that are just like so far out of the common knowledge of bass fishing that like they're just so versatile in terms of what you can do with them. And, you know, we're really starting to tap into the potential of that. And it's something I think will only increase over the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Dude, one thing I wanted to bring up, we posted a clip of it last night. We've been starting to do these little news clips, people updated on different news, and it's a different content twist that we love doing now. And I wanted to share the story of, because while we'll put out there the different news things that might be, you know, we don't want to call them negative, but we try to take a good spin on it, show two different sides of the story. And last night I did the one of you dropping out of the invitationals to provide a spot for somebody else, because I want to share the good stories too, just like we had with Carl on. I want to share the good with everything, with especially current climate of fishing industry.
Yeah.
So, dude, walk us through thinking about that, because I feel like one that's a very respectable decision, but also one that's, I feel like, is pretty mature, where somebody, you know, right now, especially as a rookie, you're like, man, I'm sitting good for that. Like, that's more money that is on the table that you're willing to walk away from to help somebody else.
Yeah, man. You know, it came down to the fact that this was a decision that I didn't nobody can count on saying, hey, I'm going to be in contention for Angler of the Year at the end of the season. I know that's going to happen, but it was obviously signing up for all the events at the beginning of the season. It was something that, I thought was a possibility. And really my primary reason for signing up for all of them at the beginning of the season was requalification. I mean, if I wasn't in good shape in the BPT points at the end of the season, I wanted to have a backup plan for getting in. And, it came up in probably February, like where I started thinking about it, where I was like, if I'm not in the driver's seat to win AOY in this deal and I'm not out of it in the points and I don't need to requalify, what am I going to do? Because this goes back to the end of July last year at La Crosse when that last invitational ended. Whether people remember this or not, I don't know, but I remember it. And I finished up 9th in the points. They were taking 8 to the Bass Pro Tour, and I ended up 9th in the points. One of our BPT anglers had fished all the events, obviously trying to keep his streak of AOY titles going. Like, that's entirely understandable. But as a result, I was the first one out. And, I was absolutely heartbroken, to say the least. Like, people don't think about, I mean, obviously they think about it when, people talk about it, like, oh yeah, the disappointment of coming close and not making it. But like, when you have to go from building an entire year of your life up to some sort of crescendo and you get close, but you don't quite make it, you see all of the success you had to have and all the things you had to have go right along the way to even get you to that point. And you also see the fact that it didn't happen. And now you're back to tied for dead last to start the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And, so many of those guys that did, ended up making the cut, or guys that I fish against on a regular basis on the invitationals. I mean, so many of those guys are stringing out, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches when they're, setting up their meal prep for the week. It's just peanut butter, jelly sandwich, and granola bar and a bottle of water for the day. And that's what they're rocking on because they're trying to make it work for $5,000 entry fees and, a full week of tournament fishing and practice. And like, so many of those guys are trying so hard and want so desperately to make it. And I was one of those individuals last year that I was so close, but it didn't end up happening. And I remember that feeling of being right there and it just wasn't going to be my time. And then as a result of some retirements and guys switching over and things like that, I ended up getting an invite in November to fish. And, knowing that I was going into the BPT and that was going to be my big opportunity to like prove that I belong, prove that, all these things that I've learned and accumulated over time, that like this is coming to fruition. And I knew that was my opportunity when I started the season at Toledo Bend to prove it. And I feel like so far this season, I've done a pretty good job of proving that I, deserve my place amongst our BPT field and things like that. And coming up to this decision, like it's not an inconsequential decision. It was a really tough decision because on the one hand, like the biggest convincer for any of us, especially in bass fishing, where we, a lot of us aren't making enough money to just push away opportunities at making cash, is like the $50,000 bonus for AOY is huge. And also the title of being the Angler of the Year, you may never get another chance in your career to compete for an AOY trophy. And any chance that you have at that, like, you better be really careful about what you do with it. And, that was a really big factor on the one side. And the other hand is like, one of our guys on the Bass Pro Tour that's around that requalification line for career AOY would have been who would have caught that back end requalification spot for me fishing all of the invitationals and finishing in the top 5. And so that was another part on that side. But on the other side, we have, if I fish all of the invitationals and finish in the top 5 in the points, one of the invitationals guys that probably just had one of the best years of their fishing career or the best year of their fishing career ends up finishing 6th in the points, kills it all season. And if you look at the points right now, the points average in the invitationals is unbelievable. I mean, to be in the top 5 right now, you're averaging better than 20th per tournament out of 150 boats so far the entire season. And that's absolutely an unbelievable number to shoot for. And I felt as though, there's a lot of guys that are performing really well over there this year. And some guys that, they're putting the time in, they're putting the effort in, they're fishing really well. And I've, just got more and more guilt in my conscience for just knowing how much effort they've put into doing what they're doing and how well they're performing, and how a lot of, there's not just going to be one guy. There's going to be a handful of these guys on the invitationals this year that have the best year of their careers by a long shot and fish at an unbelievable level. One of my travel partners for the invitationals, Cole Breeden, Cole's in 10th or 11th in the points with a top 25 average. That is unbelievable.
That's crazy.
I mean, he's mathematically, he's probably not even in the race with a top 25 average all season. Yeah. And that's an unbelievable number. Like, they're absolutely killing it this year. And I felt as though if I was to take up one of those opportunities and, one of those guys, a full year of their life and a full year of effort and dreaming and hoping culminated to that point, and they didn't get to at least have that opportunity to jump up and prove themselves like I got last year in retrospect because some people switched and retired. Like, if I don't get that opportunity, if this year doesn't happen for me, like both as an angler and building my brand and financially, like if this year doesn't happen for me, I mean, I'm set back a large margin in going into the next season because this year did more for me on both of those fronts than, I had one of probably what will be, regardless of what I do the rest of my career, what will be one of the greatest years of my fishing career this year. And if I didn't have the opportunity at that to set myself up for the next few years, not just set up my career, but set up what my future family is going to look like, what my life financially is going to look like over the next 10 years. I mean, this year gives me a head start on all of that. And if I don't have that, who knows what happens? Who knows what it looks like 5-10 years down the road? And just having that open window to take advantage of an opportunity that I feel like is earned is something that I really felt strongly about trying to preserve for somebody that I felt deserved it. And, regardless of who ends up getting that fifth spot, performance-wise, they've more than earned that opportunity this year. I mean, anybody that's kept up with the invitationals has seen that all season. Their level of competition has been insane. And it's something that, but man, it was such a hard decision because it's just difficult that, I feel like in some senses I was left with the dilemma of like, me personally, it was my responsibility to determine who got to fish next year and who didn't. And that's a hard decision for anybody. And like to go from 2 years ago, just worrying about, doing well in class and trying to catch fish on the weekends that I had tournaments, to now being at the level that I'm at, knowing that I'm safe for the next season and getting, looking forward to my second season of the Bass Pro Tour and having to make this decision has been something that I pined over for months. It definitely wasn't something that I just called up Kevin. I was like, hey, Kevin, I'm out. But, it was something that I felt was right. And ultimately, when I'm 70 years old, what I'll think about will not be whatever letters that a trophy says on some bookshelf in my closet or wherever it is, or, $50,000. If $50,000 matters to me when I'm 70, more than my conscience, I've definitely lost my way somewhere between here and there. And so for me, that was kind of what it came down to, is like, what decision will I be the most settled with 50 years from now? And that was the direction that I felt I needed to go. And it was a struggle for me to make that decision, for sure, because as an angler, I want to compete. I want to try and collect accolades and bolster myself financially. But, on the other side, I feel like I have just as much responsibility to myself and to the sport as an angler as I do a person. And as far as that goes, when I weighed it from that angle, like, my responsibility as a person and as an individual to myself and to everyone around me, I feel outweighs my responsibility as a competitor to go out and try and chase titles. And that was kind of where it boiled down for me, and that was why I made the decision I made. And I'm disappointed to get to miss out on an absolute smallmouth beatdown, but it's going to be, for me, I will be fun fishing with my dad that week. We're going to go smallmouth fishing somewhere else and get to reel a few in, and I'll get to keep up with the festivities that are going on in Detroit and all the tournament going down and get to watch it from that angle, which will be semi gratifying for me there. And it's definitely something that I definitely I struggled with making that decision, but I felt like that was decision that was best for me and for what I felt was right for the sport as a whole, and that's why I went the direction I went.
Dude, one, I respect the hell out of that perspective of that carry it. You said the was it in your quote on that post from Tackle?
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Yeah, I said carry it forward. I'm saying that's not right. But that seriously, dude, that is one hell of a like we had Carl on earlier. We talked about the fear my heart incentive. I say if that wasn't just for the Elite Series, I'd say you damn deserved one of those. And I said on the little news clip last night that we posted, said whoever comes in at 5 owes you a damn steak and a beer because it's gonna be credit to you on making that decision. And I think there's gonna be a cool sense of when you see what happens with that person that's in 5th, move on and see what they do afterwards. There's going to be a little sense of pride, I feel like, for yourself, seeing that you had a hand almost in helping them get on the BPT.
Yeah, man. And on the other side of it, like, I mean, obviously I'm going to be, regardless of who ends up making it, I'm going to be ecstatic that they're getting the opportunity, but it is the opportunity that they've worked so hard to earn, like being the top 5 of their field in the points. Like that's an earned opportunity. And it's one that I feel like should be preserved. And regardless of whether that's me or somebody else, taking the time to make sure that their hard work gets rewarded. But that's something that, like, they've gone out and they've done the work and they've earned that opportunity. And I'm just trying to do my best to help preserve it. And I mean, obviously, that the other side of it is regardless, we're fishing with an 80 angler field next year, which means that it's, somebody in the BPT would have been preserved by me fishing that event that won't be as a result now. And that's the flip side of it. And that's really it's a decision that I felt was the right one. But many times in life, the decisions that people regard as being right or wrong decisions are regarded that way because of the fact that there is consequence regardless. And that's the part for me that, like, was not an enjoyable part of my deliberation process, because so many of those guys are I have had a tremendous welcome on the BPT this year. I have not had issues with any of my competitors. They've all been extremely gracious to me and very respectful. And the other side of it is, man, so many of those guys are my heroes. Like, that's not something that, I considered lightly in that, and that, like, so many of those guys are guys I've looked up to since I just got into this fishing thing. And so like that was one place where, I mean, it was a tough decision. And like, I definitely don't want anyone that's earned that opportunity to feel beholden to me for anything, because they've taken the time to earn that place in fishing. But man, I will say, like, watching whoever gets this opportunity take it and run and see what they do with it is something that I'm looking forward to. And it's definitely something that, as a result of feeling like it should be preserved for them, it's something that I'll watch with great interest, because, and it won't be just watch, like I'll be competing against them. And that's another thing. I mean, these guys are really, really good, and they've taken my money on the invitationals this year, just like I'm sure they will on the Bass Pro Tour next year. But, in terms of keeping our competition as strong and as enriched as possible, I mean, it's something that's definitely, it's necessary, regardless of whether I look at it as them taking my money or not. I mean, nothing makes you better than getting beat. And, if you got guys coming up that are going to challenge you and make you better, that's definitely something that has to be done to keep our anglers fishing at their highest potential.
Yeah. I mean, this year, you guys, rookie wise, I mean, you guys got put backs against the wall. It's basically make top 15 or you're done. Like, you had 1 year in the BPT.
Yeah, man, that was a strong determinant in stepping into the season, wanting to just hit the ground running and cave their heads in. And, going into that too is like that 15 mark is a bit of a moving target. So it's going to end up falling between 52nd to like 57th in points. So basically that was the mark for everybody that didn't have lifetime to support them, or anybody that's lifetime wasn't high enough to carry them, was like, that's the mark. But man, like, even just looking at, you look at it and you're like, oh, 52nd to 57th, that's not that hard. But like in that field, that just hanging with them and beating any of them's a challenge. And so I came into it, wanting to hit the ground running at Toledo Bend, and like to have that first tournament at Toledo, setting up the way it did. I really like winter largemouth fishing. It's what I've spent a lot of time doing at Kentucky Lake and in local fisheries. We aren't quite far enough north to get a lot of really thick ice, so we get winter fishing around where I am in Illinois. And as a result, I've spent a lot of time doing it. So to step into it in a winter largemouth tournament, in a big weight like showdown slugfest tournament, where it wasn't like a grinder, one that I go into knowing what I'm going to do and knowing how it's going to play out, like having all those variables, which are what makes the Every Fish Counts format what it is, controlled for the first event, to just let me go out there, focus on drilling them. And that was the only goal, was just catch as much as I could catch every day, because I couldn't physically hurt my areas bad enough to ruin them for the rest of the week. Like that was the perfect tournament for me to step into and to step in, prove to myself that I could both step into that format and catch them and step in against that field and do well. Like that was the ultimate like boost of confidence that I needed to hit the rest of the season. And, other than a misstep at Santee, for the most part, I've not looked back.
Yeah, dude. I mean, mindset says a lot. That's a great way to start it off for you. One last. So I got one last question for you that we'll wrap the show. Before I do, on that note, it made me think of what was it like in that first event, transitioning to the Every Fish Counts format. Did you go and try to practice it before the season started to get somewhat familiar on your own, if you will?
Yeah, man. Every time I got the chance to fun fish from November to the start of the season, I took my, the Bubba scale that we have has the features of keeping track of your total weight on it and everything, and actually itemizing it in the app. But I took that scale and I went and fished everywhere I fished. I kept track of everything I caught over, we had 2 pound minimum and a 1/8 minimum. And like arbitrarily, depending on where I was, I would set that minimum in my mind. And then I'd go out fishing like I'm trying to collect that next quality bite. Like I'm out here trying to generate every quality bite I can, every opportunity I have to generate that, 2, 3, 4 pound bite. I'm going to find a way to make that happen in as fast of a frequency as I could. And that was something I definitely practiced over the next couple months. I didn't get to do a lot of fishing. I mean, being kind of the dead of winter and like you got Christmas and then, getting everything ready for the season and things like that. Like I didn't get to fish as much as I wanted to. But stepping in that format, the only thing you really can't practice for is the field, because, regardless how many times you go fun fishing, you can't make 40 boats appear and put pressure on the place for a week. And so I didn't know how that format was going to respond to pressure. And the other thing was I didn't know how to adjust to the double zeros. So you got a 0 between the qualifying round and the knockout round. You got a 0 between the knockout round and the championship round, which makes it, that's what implements the, not all gas, no brakes part of it, but implements the, okay, how hard do I hit it and for how long? And like, the idea of it, Toledo, we had crowds following us around at times. And like, how do I move the flotilla away from places I want to save and all those different aspects. And that's what makes that format the way that it is like, you don't want to lean on anything too hard or expose anything too much, because if it gets burnt out, like by the end of whatever round you're in for the next round, it might as well not even exist. It might as well have not existed all week, because you're starting at 0 and something that's burnt down is burnt down. That, other than getting you to that round, that area or that deal is not carrying you any further. It's just getting you where you got if you burn it down and if you play it, a little bit too aggressive. And so that's been definitely a transition. In that event, it was something that I thought of a lot. But at Toledo, man, like when you talk about suspended fish, winter tournaments on a fishery with as many 3 to 5 pounders as Toledo has, like it almost took the fish management part of it, other than the like managing the flotilla, keeping eyes off your areas thing, in terms of like actually catching enough of the fish to worry about hurting it. You couldn't really fish aggressively enough in an area to hurt an area, because by the time you fish through one vein of emptiness in the timber or one raft of bait or whatever you had, by the time you fish through that whole area, it may have taken you an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you've only taken one pass through it. And most of these major areas on Toledo were 200 yards to half a mile wide. And so, like, realistically, you could spend an entire day in an area and continue to get bit. It's just, maybe it didn't have the potential in a day's time to produce the amount of frequency of 3 and 4 pounders that another area could. And so that was really the decision there. But in terms of actually managing fish, I didn't have to deal with that dilemma at Toledo. So that first tournament, like, it was a good step into the format because I didn't have all the variables in play, because you couldn't hurt them bad enough to have to manage them. And, that it was a slugfest tournament. So you didn't really have to worry about creating bites other places. You didn't have to worry about manufacturing bites to fill the gaps in your good areas, which is a big issue with the frequency when you're talking about tougher fisheries.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to deal with that at Toledo. So that was just, it was just a good stepping stone tournament for me.
Yeah.
And definitely set the pace.
Heck yeah, dude. No, I mean, it seems like you hit the ground running pretty well. So that's cool that you kind of dial that in. It's definitely a mindset shift. That's for damn sure. But Andy, you got anything left here for Drew before we hit him with the last question?
Going from the traditional 5-fish format over to the BPT, and, you fish, if you're Group A, you fish one day and then you get a day off and you go to another day. And when it comes to fish management, how did you come to thought on how to manage those fish, and thoughts of, maybe a guy that's going tomorrow might have found the same spot? Like, to me, it's like, do you try to find as many areas as possible to catch them, or do you just then burn one area to the ground in hopes of thinking that somebody else found that area? Like, what is your process going? I guess to shorten it, what is your process going from the invitationals to the BPT when it comes to a fish management sense?
Yeah, so the thought process there for the most part is like identifying what kind of tournament you're in. So if I identified that I was in a slugfest tournament, we've only had 2 that I would consider true slugfest, which is tournaments where there are hyper concentrations of fish in different parts of the fishery. And if you find one of those hyper concentrations, you're outpacing the entire field 10 fish to their 1, which was Toledo and Dale. Those were the 2 tournaments where you could find a hyper concentration of quality fish where you could bury people beyond belief in a short amount of time. In those 2 events, the real concern was like practice time. That's my focus in those, is like practice time. Meaning, I know there's hyper concentrations to be found, and I want to give myself as much time in the tournament to A, stay on top of groups that are moving, and B, find new ones in the event. And that's my goal in a slugfest, is give myself as much time to practice as possible. You'd think it'd be the other way around. You'd think in a tough tournament, you want to give yourself as much time to practice as possible. But actually in those tougher events, my major concern generally is I just want to find what's the best area of the lake in terms of just population. And I'm going to fish multiple different things that area. I'm going to fish, you follow Oklahoma, I was fishing some rock stretches. I was fishing some stumps and brush. I was fishing a lot of docks. I was fishing anywhere with cleaner water. And like, I was picking a section of the lake that I thought was quality, and then I was fishing different patterns within it. And so really it was just about like trying to fill the gaps in between and catch, one-off fish wherever I could, and keep that frequency as high as possible and just outlast people. And in those tournaments, it's like, basically catch as much weight to get through the round as possible. And those, as soon as you get to that weight that you want to be at, which generally does not happen as fast in a tough tournament as it does in a slugfest, those are the ones where, like, once I start reaching that qualifying weight, then I'm going, okay, how do I take eyes off my best areas in terms of sections, little sections and stretches that I feel are places I could get a couple more bites? How can I keep eyes off of that while still being effective in running around and either finding another little mini section somewhere elsewhere? Because generally, even when you have a major portion of a lake that's really good, you'll have little mini sections, meaning a mile or 2 mile areas around the fishery that are also extremely viable, but they're not worth as much. But if you have those and you can string a couple of those areas together, you can fill those gaps. Those gaps, those lulls that you got to let areas set up and regroup, and you got to find ways to catch fish during those lulls. That's what those tough tournaments are all about. Versus the slugfest ones are like, buy myself as much practice time as possible throughout the event so I can stack hyper concentrated areas to where the entire final day I can spend my time fishing for a hyper concentration for 7.5 hours straight.
Damn.
I like it. Yeah.
Dialed. Ooh. I think that's the only thing you can say.
It's a good transition. Like, I like that. Yeah.
So Drew, first time on the show, we like to leave everybody with the same question. And that is, if you could invite anybody, it could be, doesn't have to be fishing industry. They could be alive 1,000 years ago, live today. It doesn't matter. Any 3 people, who would you invite, steak and a beer, and pick their brain?
Oh man. You know, as far as that goes, I mean, answer number 1, I feel like universally should be Jesus Christ. Answer number 2, I'm going to go with, I mean, you know, I want to pick Kevin's brain. I want to pick KVD's brain. I would love to sit down and have that. And another one, I'm trying to think. This is where it comes out, because like you got one more option, and as soon as you say that last option, generally you think of something else.
You're catching on to why we asked this question.
Yes, but you should always take your first answer because it's usually the right one.
If I could pick anyone's brain, anyone, and like understand what they're thinking, I mean, you could pick a really out there answer of somebody that's just like an absolute enigma that's ununderstandable. Yeah. Napoleon.
Okay.
Not Dynamite, the real one.
I was going to say, which one are we talking about? Like dang, that. Okay. That is a very out there answer. I like that, though.
I had to go with an out there answer because, like, Napoleon was known for being, like, an absolute maniac, really short guy. Definitely, like, he's the originator of, like, the short person complex thing. And, like, I want to know why he has such a bad rap for that. And that would be really interesting for me.
Yeah.
This is where that college education's coming into it, because now I'm learning about Napoleon. I knew who
Napoleon,
he was.
Alex the Great would be another good one, or like Caesar, right, in the Roman Empire. Like, why did they all go kind of insane?
Okay, really fast. I've been seeing these jokes about like just it's like a meme where it's like somebody's like, I'm just thinking about the Roman Empire or something like that. What the heck is this all about? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I have no clue.
Well, it's like it's a play on the fact that supposedly the idea is that every man in society thinks about the Roman Empire and just never brings it up, like it crosses their mind on a regular basis, and like that's the whole concept. But does it not cross your mind on a regular basis?
No, I think about fishing.
No.
So if you were to quantify it, how often do you think the Roman Empire crosses your mind?
Only when I see memes about it on social media.
So it's always on your mind.
I'd say for me, it's probably got to be like twice a week. I'd say.
Seriously?
Yeah, 100%. You don't just like start thinking about the Roman Empire, like just random things about, like they had the vast water movement systems and like all of the dynasties of the Roman Empire.
Like most of the stuff in modern day comes from the Roman Empire, like aqueducts and wars.
No, I don't think about. I think about Sparta every now and then, but that's because they're badass.
The movie.
No, that's it. You're just way more intelligent than I am. I'm just literally a ditz that sits here thinking about fish and food, and that's basically what fishing and food consumes most of my thought. But like, I feel like twice a week is a reasonable number to think about the Roman Empire. I feel like that's entirely acceptable, at least.
For like instance, Bailey, real fast. Sorry, I apologize. Like, people will be like, "Oh, you know, society is so angry today." I go, "No, man." I'm like, you got to think about the Roman Empire. Like, they were killing each other in coliseums for fun, right? Like that's how it kind of comes into context and things.
I think beyond seeing the memes and learning about it in high school, I've never once thought about the Roman Empire outside of that.
No Russell Crowe and some gladiator? Come on.
I mean, beyond that, I guess, watching the movie, but no, I don't know. I always saw that. I'm like, what in the world is this? But either way, dude, thank you so much for taking time out. Appreciate you joining the show. Learned a lot. Man, we definitely got to get you back on here because it's cool to chat with you, learn from you, and I know the people definitely agree with that.
I really enjoyed it, man, and I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a really good time. and I'm always down.
Awesome, dude. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it as always, and we'll see you soon, my friend. All right, see you, Drew. Well, there you have it, folks. Mr. Drew Gill. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. Is anybody else really thinking about the Roman Empire that much? That is intriguing.
It's not twice a week for me, but it probably comes up in conversation for me at least like once a month. At least. And I guess that would be a good opening question for John once we get him on here. Like, how much does John think about the Roman Empire? Because I think
there we go. There's going to be just no hello. It's John. How much do you think about the Roman Empire? Just no introduction. he says 0, actually. So you already got the answer. See, we're not the only one. All right. Well, big thanks again to Drew. That was awesome getting him on here. It was a long time coming, and definitely I'm excited to get him back on here because I feel like with his, I mean, obviously, if he thinks about the Roman Empire that much and how he obviously has a very complex mind, and that's something that we always appreciate on this show. So thanks again to Drew. And without further ado, we have a quick message from X2 Power, and then we have Mr. John Garrett joining us.
In the world of battery power, a word to the wise: compromise elsewhere.
All right, we are back, and let's bring in our last guest for tonight, Mr. John Garrett. What's going on, dude?
What's up?
So we can just confirm
Thanks for waiting,
zero thoughts on the Roman Empire, correct?
Never think about the Roman Empire. Never.
Not once.
Not
like general context.
Not since like 7th grade U.S. world history class. Yeah, I've not thought about that at all.
My man.
Yeah,
it's not just me. For a second there, like, I don't know. I guess maybe just because Drew he just comes off very, very, very intelligent, and I'm sitting there like, wow, I'm really the dumb. I mean, I always assume the dumbest person in the room, but
man, you're looking at me. I'm definitely the dumbest one in the room. All right, like
Drew's mind runs constantly when mine barely runs. That's just totally different.
You gotta give yourself some credit, man. I mean, you're having a badass season, dude. Like, you're sitting 6th in AOI, going to the last 2 events. I mean, dude, it's got to feel pretty damn good for rookie season. And then you got a blue trophy, you got $100,000 check. That's got to feel pretty damn good.
Dude, crazy year. It's just been ever since I guess we kind of got away from the spawn, kind of post spawn time, man. I've just been making really good decisions. Especially based on some of the practices I've had. I've had a couple of good practices, but most of the time they've been just dreadful, and been able to turn bad practices into good tournaments, man. Just been a good year. I mean, things are kind of clicking right now, and as an angler, you kind of understand where I'm coming from there, and hopefully it don't stop, but it always comes to an end sooner rather than later. So,
well, you know what they say, they ride it out. Because I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I remember Polinack talking about it a while ago, where it's when he talks about a single event anyway, it's like if you can shoot for the win and you fall, you're gonna fall in say the top 20, top 30. Mm-hmm. Where it's if you shoot for the top 30, you fall in the 50s, 60s. Where it's like, at least I feel like if you keep that train of thought, with the consistency you're doing, the worst case is you're gonna have a season where you might be bubble boy. That might be the worst, which I feel like in your case, if you're in high 30s, 40s, not the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? But the way you're riding, dude, 6th in AOI right now, I think that thought should not be in your mind whatsoever. Just keep riding this train because 2 events left. You're not out of AOI. To lead it anyway.
No doubt. I mean, some unfortunate things happened to Trey this past week, and it just shows you that no matter how good your year is going, something could happen. And being not too far behind Justin Hamner and Trey and Cody and all them, and me I've kind of already made the classic, so I have really nothing to lose in the next few tournaments besides kind of shoot for the big goals. Try hard, shoot for some wins, and see where the cards fall. I'm looking forward to fishing a couple tournaments with at least Champlain with no pressure because I'm already in the Classic. Unless I do really well at Champlain, then I'll have a little pressure at St. Lawrence to do a little better. But looking forward to get up in y'all's neck of the woods where we're not battling. We will be battling pterodactyl-like mosquitoes because I think y'all have some of the worst mosquitoes up north than anywhere in the country. But we won't be battling 100-degree heat up there anyway, so that's going to be good.
You should have been here like 2 weeks ago. It was 100 degrees.
No, was it?
Terrible.
It was so bad, John. That Champlain, the Adirondack Champlain, I think has some of the worst mosquitoes, black flies that I've ever experienced in my entire life.
They'll get you.
Where it's the nice part about St. Lawrence River though is because like you have that lake wind or whatever you don't get.
Yeah.
I'm not a biologist. That's just my theories. That's why you might
not.
Have.
Biologist.
See, this is me showing why I'm an idiot. But either way, a couple weeks back, I went and I fished a kayak tournament in the Adirondacks. And dude, there was a couple mosquitoes out, but I didn't think anything of it. And I sleep in my truck and I leave 2 windows cracked just a little bit. Buddy, when I tell you I woke up thinking I had like bed bugs, it was that bad because I just got tore up everywhere. It's so bad up here for mosquitoes. it's horrible.
Should just sprayed some DEET in your truck.
I should have slept in a bathtub of DEET because it was that bad, dude. It was one of those things where it just drives you mentally insane because you're so itchy. But yeah, either way, that's a different conversation. But
no, I just every time we go up north, of course we have long days up there. We fish for a long time, and then next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock, and you're on the side of the lake trying to rig up tackle, and you can't because the mosquitoes are carrying your braid off, they're carrying you off, and it's like you can't find leaving knots. Up there at night, man, they're vicious.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's definitely a time where you just got to bring all your tackle inside.
Yeah.
But dude, I mean, so Logan with his YouTube series, one thing that I got to see a little bit, hanging with you guys at the Classic and just watching as a fan perspective. But Logan's video series, man, I think has brought out some of the characters in your house. And it definitely seems like you and Cody, like obviously you're both actually dads, but like you're literally the dads of the house, it seems, to keep them boys in check.
It's hard, man. It's a hard job because it's like we fish all day and then we come back and I take care of our kid, not only our real kids, but then Rob and Logan and Jack, the cameraman. He's got a little calm to him, but 3 kids in the house. But no, it's a good time. Rob G keeps the entire house laughing. He is a hoot, man. It's not just cracking normal jokes. It's like almost intelligent jokes where you have to think about what he says to laugh a lot of times. Like he's just got a really good sense of humor in him. And man, glad he's part of the house. I will say this. Rob just had a really good finish at Smith Lake. And every time I fished around Rob, he has caught way more bass than me in those areas. He is one of the fish catchingest, sneakiest bait dudes I've ever been around in my life. Like everybody's focused on what Koya and Taku and all the foreign anglers are throwing. Y'all should take a look in Rob G's boat. He has some wild stuff in there, and he can trick a lot of fish to bite. So if I'm ever in a tournament, we find the same area, I just leave immediately because he's going to suck them all out of the area.
He vacuumed them all up. These are mine.
Yeah, for sure.
So are you calling him out right now, saying that if he does like the top 10 baits thing, that it's all a lie? Like he's not going to show him?
It's going to be a 70-30. You'll get 70% of the truth and 30% he's going to keep in his pocket. He might show you some of the baits he's using, but he's not showing you all the tricks he does with it. But no, he's super sneaky with that stuff. And man, even other guys on the Elite Series will tell you the same thing. It's like, I don't want to be fishing around Rob during the tournament day for sure.
Well, I think you can flash back to Toledo during the live coverage. Like everyone was fishing that main stretch, and then Rob was like off in his own little arm all by himself doing his own thing. Yeah. So maybe there was other pros that practiced, and they're like, "Yep, I'm not going in there with them."
Oh yeah, Rob's in here. We're out of here, guys. And he just has half the lake to himself. But No, it's been a really good time. Man, the whole house has had a good year, and we've, me and Logan worked together last year, and then me and Cody worked together in college, and we both worked well with each other individually. And I mean, it takes a whole lot of trust between four people working together. But man, we're making it work. We're learning things through each tournament, and I think we'll have a little more, have a little more nitpick stuff nailed down by the time we get, next season going. But man, it's been really good for us on the water and been a real good time off the water as well.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. I mean, people talk about a network being important at your guys' stage, and when it's also guys on the trail, I think that definitely helps too. Just being able to, almost like when we were talking a little bit with Drew, but on the first show we were on with you when you were talking about the college fishing scene. It's probably almost a similar aspect. I mean, being that you fished in college with them, but I think that it's kind of that same environment then, where it's just you guys are obviously trying to beat each other, but at the same point in time, you're also learning from each other. And now that the fact that this is your careers, this is your profession, I think it takes it to a whole new height, which is, I think it's a cool deal for you guys. But have you been able to watch any of the coverage yet from Smith, like any of the stuff with Rob on the water or any of the baits and stuff like that?
No, I haven't.
I encourage you when you get time to at least go watch the Chick-fil-A clip with Rob, because that personality coming out full fledged. Like, I think people are starting to see exactly what you're talking about, that Rob's a character. And I got to share a few drinks with Rob at the Classic, and I definitely got to see it for myself, which I think you saw too at Duncan's deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, some of the bait things is so hard for me. Like looking at Taku's baits. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these things, and he's got that. He calls it the pancake, which is that nori's. I can't remember what it's called, but like a flapping.
Yeah, it looks like a flat frog. Looks like you ran over a tree frog with your car. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a pack of those, and I'm sitting there, and I have them in my stash for like largemouth on bed type of deal, like something different just to get him to fire. And he's sitting here Nico rigging the damn thing, hover strolling it, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, it's Taku, so I wouldn't be surprised. But also I'm sitting there, I'm like, is he just using that to disguise and throw people off because it's so wacky? It's like, how do you even, like, for the fan, like, do you even trust it? Like, how many guys do you think are have that rigged up on Smith this week?
Look, I don't care if it's Taku or Kenta or Rob or me. What you see us most of the time, what we let out to the public is not what we're catching fish on most of the time. And
thank you. Somebody said it.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be honest with you. All the JDM stuff and the stuff we have easily handy here. When we come out and even say, like, hey, this is what we're using, most of the time that just does not sell product. And what really sells product, which people don't realize, is stuff that gets left in our rod box and people don't know about. It's like, what is Rob really using? And then you hear it fifth hand down that he's using something crazy. That's what people buy. And even when it's something that we all have, that we can all get, that's available to get, we still don't really talk about it. Like, there's a lot of striking baits that I use in different colors and use them in different ways that I don't really let people know about because it's just kind of a way I get a few bites. But man, that's when you find out what Taku and is really using, and it's the same thing with all the minnow baits that everybody's using. No one advertises it, but you can't buy them. You can't go anywhere to buy all these hot baits, is because people kind of hear sneakily what people are using. That's what sells product more than advertising it, really.
Yeah, I think that's a great point in itself, where it's, and I think you could say the same thing for discontinued baits. There's a reason why some baits get discontinued, is because they're so good that the people pushing them don't want to talk about it, and so they get discontinued. So if you see that, a note for people, like one of the baits Taku was using was discontinued, that he was honest about. I think he was honest about. He said it was discontinued. Like stuff like that you see, there's a reason why. So like some of them might actually suck, but like use your judgment. Some of the discontinued things, man, they can be if you get your hands on them, some of the best baits in history have been discontinued.
Yep.
Yeah, like one of my.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of Bailey and I's favorite max scent baits got discontinued, and I think I only have like 18 bags of them left. I'm gonna cry when I run out of them. It's like, dang it.
And
They're getting hard to find.
There's a striking bait that was called the wake shad. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that or not. It's a jointed wake bait. It's got a bill on it. And
was it very similar to the king shad?
Yes, the king shad. Yep, it's the same thing. And they came out with it. Everybody on the pro staff loved it. No one pushed it. They got rid of it. The entire pro staff were crying blues, and everybody sucked them all up. All the pro staff did. They quit making them, and they're coming back out with one at ICAST here. So it's just like, just because a bait doesn't get talked about doesn't mean it doesn't catch them, because a lot of times that's the baits that get them good.
Is this?
Yes.
That's it right there. Yep.
Yeah,
that's her.
Everything's out of stock. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a really, really good bait. Yeah.
So is this going to be the same one that they're coming back out with, or is it
same exact one, little different colors, some upgraded hooks on it, but it's the same exact bait.
That's freaking sweet. Yeah, man, that's such a good point in regards to that, like the bait side of it, where I feel like the top 10 bait stuff, while to your point, most guys will lie about it, it's still like for somebody that's going to lake for the first time, you're not gonna go and show people something outlandish. You're gonna still give people an idea of how you can go catch a bass out there. It's just, if there's something super sneaky, you're obviously not gonna show it. Where you could be like, I want to say it was Chris or Corey, one of the two. It was 2 years ago, I think, on the Lake Ontario St. Lawrence, where they literally just went like this. They didn't show anything. It was just their hand over the bait.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but yeah, those always crack me up.
Yeah, they're usually close, and if you go buy those baits, they'll probably catch fish, but they're more than likely not rigging them that way or a different color, something different most of the time.
Yeah.
And what cracks me up in the mornings when they do the top 10 gallery is you see everybody, sometimes myself included, cutting the baits off that have all the teeth marks on them we're being using and tying brand new baits out of the package on. And when they show up in the Bassmaster article, it doesn't even look like they've been thrown before. So it's like, come on, man. You didn't
fresh crate for the day. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So have you noticed this thing? We've had a few guys talk about it. Hamner was the first one like 2 years ago to tell us on a show that it's not 2 years ago, sorry, last year, that with Kyoya, everyone's like trying to see his boat or something like that, but he's like the most neat, put everything away, lock everything when he goes to bring his fish up. Have you noticed more guys beyond just Kyoya doing that?
Yeah, you'll notice this a lot when you watch live. And I don't really do it that much, even if I'm not throwing a sponsor bait, is because it's kind of a pet peeve for me watching Bass Live, is when someone lands a fish, they put their fish right here and turn away from the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'll unhook it, and then you'll see a bait fly off in the water. That I will say 50% of fish catches on Bass Live, they hide the bait and throw it out in the water. But yeah, there's a lot of people that do that. But you have a lot of people that they're almost happy and proud they figured something cool out, and they jabber about it. But those guys that don't like people knowing what they're throwing, they hide it on Bass Live. They lock their rod lockers. They put all their rods up before weigh in. Yeah, hard to get peeks at baits from specific people for sure.
Yeah, whether he was doing it on purpose or not, Taku was one of those on the last.
Oh, yeah, he's doing it on purpose for sure.
I love it. Yeah. That's got to be from your guys' sense. I guess here's my question for you: is in that house, I mean, do you guys try to be a little sneaky around each other in that sense, or is it pretty open book on what you're throwing?
No, I feel like, at least on my part, no, I feel like for the whole house, we're very, very open. And what we've kind of all done is that we've even shared, as far as sharing waypoints this year, places we find. is like number one goal each tournament. Let's all four at least try to make a check. Let's all try to make a cut, whether that's me helping all three people out or all three people helping me out or a little bit of everybody. We all just try to keep somebody from having a bomb. And then, as end of day two comes around, even if we're all sharing stuff and then all of a sudden somebody has a chance to win, then it's just like, hey, man, all yours. Like, you do you. We made it through the first 2 days. You have everything. You have my stuff. You have your stuff. Like, go try to win. And, hopefully it works out at the end of the year where we all make the classic. Where there's been a lot of top 10s in the house so far doing that this year. And, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. Like, I've weighed fish off of Logan's stuff and Cody's stuff and Rob's stuff all through the year, and they've done the same to me. So it's like, we might be hurting each other 5 places at one tournament throughout the year. But what I've seen is that if someone else pulls up to my place when I'm not there or while I'm there and they catch a fish, I probably wouldn't go catch that fish anyway. So we're really helping each other out as far as not bombing a tournament. There's only been a couple bombs in the house so far this year, but it's worked out well between us all, and hopefully keep that rolling.
Yeah, and dude, so one of the first times we had you on, we were talking about kind of your approach when you were in the opens, and 'cause I think you were in the opens at the time, and you seem to, what you mentioned anyway, that you kind of weren't trying to find like the needle in the haystack. You were trying to find where you knew there were areas where fish were there. It could be community holes, and you're just going to work those all through practice and trying to find the spot on the spot. Have you taken that approach in the elites, or have you changed anything up at all?
No, I haven't changed it up, and it's almost more doable now. It's because less people, and I'm not. These guys do find absolutely everything. When in the opens, there was stuff that didn't get found, even when there's that many boats. It's almost like these guys, when they show up to a place, they're checking places where they live. But on me, the other hand, I don't know where they live to begin with most of the time, and I'm just out there trying to find a fish. But what these guys are really good about is, since there's less people on the water, is they don't just sit somewhere and milk it all day long. And in the opens, there are so many boats. A lot of people would get on a place. If they got on somewhere, it'd sit there all day. So you're able to be more mobile. And there's been very, very few times, if any, this year, if there was a boat sitting somewhere that I wanted to fish. So I've still just been honing in on, and we've had shorter practices. We only got 3 days now. So I don't have a lot of time to explore on those non-traditional areas. So I might hit the highest, the highest productive places, the 3 best areas of the lake in 3 days of practice and go from there. But yeah, I just go to places where traditionally the fish live, and that's because they live there. That's the traditional places of where they're at all the time, and right by the boat ramp. I've caught so many fish on the side of the boat ramp the past 3 years. It's ridiculous. But the most traditional places and where fish get let loose, that's where they are.
I wonder, I mean, obviously you can't put a quantitative number to this, but like how many pros tournaments or cuts or even Elite Series season to keep them on have been saved by retreads? And it's got to be an absurd number.
If you go back to Seth Fodder's AOY win and go watch his live coverage, because when you're in lead AOY, you get a live boat every day. 50% of his live coverage was inside of a boat ramp almost every single time. And they had a shallow water, more so a shallow water year that year. And it's easier to catch fish retreads in shallow water than it is deep water fisheries. But it's unbelievable. And all these guys know it. If there's a ramp in the back of a creek that holds Tuesday nighters, there's somebody finding a brush pile out in front of the boat ramp every time.
It's got to be crazy, like almost a joke though. Like when you're going through takeoff and a guy just goes, okay, starting right there.
Yep. the first day at Wheeler, I had a little pile of shell right across from Ingalls Harbor, literally right across. And I started the day with a nice limit. And 3 of the fish I weighed in were probably caught by the same guy because they had coal ring holes in their mouth, which we can't use. So some local guy using it. But more than likely, I caught 3 fish that the same person has caught for no telling how many Tuesday nighters in a row. But man, and there was 4 or 5 guys that cut checks within a couple hundred yards of the ramp. So my granddad always said it growing up, don't leave fish to find fish. And that's why I tend not to get out of productive areas.
Yeah.
How are people still using those the puncture clips? I saw somebody posted it like today or yesterday with on their story. I want to say it was Garrett Paquette, might have been it. Might have his story. But he caught a fish that had just a gaping hole on his bottom lip, and it's like, are we seriously still using puncture clips right now?
And I don't know if the fish fully recover from them, because I have done this a lot. Is if I have caught a fish that has had that puncture hole and I go to grab it, my thumb or finger will slip through where it used to be and kind of almost go through their bottom lip. So I think once a fish has it, he's pretty much got it forever, or it's weak enough to where it gives out. If somebody catches that fish again, it's going to tear open.
Right. Almost like when you get an earring, you're always going to have that hole in your ear type of deal.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor fish.
Yeah. Yeah. We were having
We've come through enough abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dude, talking about the Harris Chain dove, which, I mean, did you expect it all this year on that schedule that if you had one shot to win one, it was going to be a Harris Chain?
That would be the last place that I would have circled on my map. I've had some success at the Harris Chain. I've had some really good tournaments there, but every time I've had a good tournament, I felt like it was pure luck. I found I come in third in a college tournament. I was running back in last day of practice at dark, and I saw seagulls diving. And I had found nothing else. I'm like, I'm going to start over there. There's a massive school of fish on a little patch of grass where seagulls are diving. And it's just like the next time there was a hurricane and they had all the locks open. I caught them on current breaks in the canal. So it's like I'd done good there, but had no confidence in doing good there again. And the first day of the tournament, I found that school of fish in Carlton, and it was right at dark. I may have been practicing for too long and caught one, missed one. And that was a big one I caught, but that was it. And then second day of practice, I fished in Dora, which was a lake connecting there, because I was trying to make it worth me spending my time on that section of the lake. And I fished there for 7 or 8 hours and found one place where I snagged 2 in the back on a route trout. That's all I caught. And then spent my next day and a half in Griffin and caught a lot of fish in Griffin. And I was pretty much committed to going to Griffin because Harris Chain is so sketchy. I was like, I'm going to go there, catch 12 pounds a day, get out here with a check. I'll be happy. And rigged all my Griffin rods up. We had like tornado warnings that night. They canceled the first day of our tournament. And we were all sitting around. And I was like, man, I'm not going to Griffin. I'm going to go to that school of fish, even though it's been a few days. If they're there, great. If they're not, I don't know. I'll go flip Kissimmee grass all day and see if I can catch a limit. And literally that off day is why I won that tournament, because I rigged up all my, kind of school fishing, offshore fishing rods. And man, and when I went there, I didn't have a fish till 10:30. And at 10:30, I caught my first fish, which was like a 6.5. And then from 10:30 to 1:30, I caught that big back of fish and was really able to learn a lot, about that spot every day. So no, I did not think that was going to be the place I won a tournament whatsoever. I was thinking Wheeler, if anywhere, but not Harris Chain.
So 10:30. Speaking at least from my brain, I would have been gone by then.
Oh yeah.
What made you stay?
The only thing that kept me there is because I had seen the caliber of fish that live there, which were very large. And as the day was progressing, I kept telling myself, man, but because I've seen it so many times fishing offshore, it might be a late day deal. And I gave myself and I had a late boat number that day. I think I was doing it 4:30 or 5 o'clock or something. I was like, I'm gonna give it till noon. And then luckily they kind of bit before noon, because if they would have pulled up after 12 o'clock, I would have never caught a bass there. So I mean, it was just meant to happen, because somehow I was calm enough to spend my whole half of the day in there, and not get a bite. And I finally caught one and kind of committed to staying. So it just one of those deals when it's meant to happen, like you hear it's actually meant to happen, because it just kind of fell in my lap after that.
Yeah.
Do you think other guys found that and just found it before noon?
So I don't know how much I want to say about that place.
We don't have to talk about
there's
it.
Well, I will. There's a lot of other things in that lake, to sidetrack people. There's a lot of brush. There's a lot of rocks. There's a lot of limestone. There's a lot of things in that lake to look at. It's a really small lake, but it's kind of diverse in its own way. And where these fish were not on any of that stuff. And I got really lucky to find it, because I was going from a brush pile to another brush pile, and I found those fish in the between area, of those two pieces of cover. So there's a lot to sidetrack people. So I know that Cody and one other angler found the exact place I was fishing, but 3 people out of 103 people finding that spot's not very many. So having all the other stuff in the lake was a good thing, because it caught attention more than the actual school of bass did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seemed like you had it to yourself for the whole 4 days.
Yeah, I mean, Cody actually found that place, for pretty early day one, and I found it pretty late day one, like right at dark. And we had both, at the end of the day, said, "Hey, we found a school of bass." And Cody had a side image picture of them, and I knew what I seen. I'm like, man, that looks almost like the same school of fish, but we did not share where it was. And we both ended up there on day one. But Cody caught 17 or 18 pounds there day one. He stayed there till almost noon on day two and then left. And then he was just, like I said, super good roommate on not coming back there, because I had a pretty legit chance to win. But no, I mean, I had it pretty much to myself besides Cody, fishing that. And it wasn't just a one cast deal, it was a 50, 75 yard stretch. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
What made you pick up the hair jigs? I know that was a big player, especially when things got tougher for you.
Man, they really bit that crankbait good. The first 2 days I had a little wind. But on day two, I lost more weight than I caught. I lost like 6 really big fish on day two. And at the house that night, I was like, I have to find something I could pick up that's not treble hook orientated. And I tied a big swim bait. I tied a football jig on. I tied the whole Tennessee River lineup of big single hook baits. And that was the last bait that I tried in that rotation. I would let those fish sit, pull up, throw a big swim bait. Didn't catch one. Fish off of them, let them sit back up, throw a scrounger, nothing. Went back, threw a big spinner bait, nothing. And then it's like the last bait I had on my deck was that hair jig, and then they bit it 4 or 5 casts in a row. So really just me losing fish made me tie that hair jig on.
Was it the whole Tennessee River style of, do you do the burn and either let it pendulum or kill it type of deal? Like, is that what you're doing to catch them?
Yeah, I still use the big hair jig, like a 5/8 and 3/4 ounce, but I put it on 20-pound line, and I wasn't fishing it that deep, so I was burning it and letting it stop, but I was keeping my line tight. I wasn't fishing deep enough for having to feed it line to get to the bottom. It was one of them deals. Those fish they're literally so big and so old, like they were so smart, and they didn't feed good during the day. They only fed right before dark, and it was just something that like that crankbait was causing a reaction bite. Well, they were following that hair jig, and then when I killed it, they were just running into it. So it was as I learned more about it, it was just they were trailing it, and when I'd stop in front of them, they'd almost swim through it. So just another reaction bite bait.
That's pretty cool, dude.
That's
What's
fun.
your so for that hair jig? Run through your setup for that, like rod, line, and everything.
Yeah, so I use a pretty fast reel. I use a 7.3, 7.3 to 1 hopper mag, and then the rod is pretty important. I use a like a 7.4 medium heavy with a fast tip, almost like a spinnerbait rod. It's got an open hook in it and a kind of a heavy head. So I mean, I lost a couple fish on it anyway, but that bait is really easy to tear a big gaping hole in the fish's mouth. So you want a lot of limberness in your rod, and that allowing it to load up, and then before you kind of give them a little heat, because you'll feel a lot of bites on a hair jig wherever you throw it, them just hitting it or getting the tail of it. So you don't really set the hook. You just kind of keep doing your retrieve until you reel into one. So
You got Kyle Patrick in the comment section saying that you look cute tonight.
yeah, Kyle just found another way to message me. I've had to block him on all forms of cell phone and social media. He is getting the creep standard, to be honest with you. So
and it's his birthday, you know? Like
it is his birthday?
It is his birthday today, yes.
Well, I feel bad that he is this lonely at 9:15 on his birthday. So that just puts more flame and fire there.
More creeper status.
Yeah.
He's just probably sitting there with a case by himself on YouTube watching podcasts. Like, oh, look
eyes
at John.
wide open.
Yeah, wide open. I don't know if he sleeps or not.
Great question.
I'm gonna take the under on that. The over. He definitely doesn't sleep.
Yeah,
taking the over.
No way. Not during tournaments. Not near a tournament anyway. He might sleep in a few days, but he made a top 10, so he's gonna be really jacked for at least after ICAST.
I don't know, man. ICAST is enough to take anybody out, no matter how energetic you are.
Yeah, you're right.
Are you going to be at ICAST?
Yeah, I'll be at ICAST. Yep.
Cool. Well, so getting back on that, dude, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but that hair jig bite just seems so freaking fun to me. I've never gotten on it good, but it looks like one of those bites that's just addicting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a really cool, I don't know how to put it, it's a different bite than almost any bait. Like I can kind of compare it to stroking a football jig back in the old Tennessee River days. But I mean, it's something that I've used almost my whole life growing up on Tennessee River, and it's not really a bait that I'm going to pick up to put 15 pounds in a boat. It's not a bait that I'm going to catch every fish in the school, just wear them out. But it's a really good bait to catch one of the biggest fish out of a school of bass. And man, they knock complete slack in it. And you're kind of using it on more of a limber rod. So it's like, it's a good pull. You don't just get to winch them in. You got to fight them a little bit. And man, it is really cool. Really cool bite, because most of the time when you catch it on it, it's a nice one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
definitely something I want to
cracking them.
Yeah.
That's cool. So one of the things I wanted to ask earlier when we were talking about your spot on Harris Chain is not even just Harris Chain event in itself, but for many years you've been through college, so now at the Opens and the Elites, and you go back to the same locations. Now, when you're dealing with live coverage, does your mindset change about like that spot on Harris? Do you think that thing's done now, that Bass Live, because they go and put your pin where you're at? Do you think that place has been murdered, or do you think that you think if you go back to Harris Chain that you might have that might be a good spot still, if that makes sense?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to pull one. I'm going to tell you how vicious and savage these elite anglers are, because I'm one of them. I watched the live recap from Lake Murray last year. I was not on the Elite Series last year. I didn't fish Lake Murray, but Patrick Walters fished a very obvious place, and it was on Bass Live. Like, when I seen it, I'm like, that's got to be one of those only banks that look like that. And I caught all my fish on my top 10 at Murray off one of Patrick Walters' holes that I found on Bass Live that he fished the year before. And he rolled in one of the days of the tournament and was fishing near me there. And I was like, hey, boy, get off my hole. And he said, were you here last year? And I was like, no, but I'm here this year, So, but no, there will be the entire field will probably make a lap through Carlton if we ever go back. So I doubt that I can win on the same place, but might relocate the school of fish if they move somewhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. No, but I'm here this year.
Yeah.
Did he understand the joke, or did you just guys keep on fishing?
Oh no, he just kind of blew through the area, didn't stay there long. Because I mean, he had 100 places better than where I was fishing for that tournament. But I told him exactly the situation after he won the tournament. He laughed it off. So
I'll say he didn't care then. He had the trophy.
yeah, he didn't care.
I mean, that's true though. Like, yeah, I feel like that's one of the most underrated hurdles that you guys go through is that specific. Like in regards to now, they go and I was sitting there, I was watching the Lake Fork footage today, and it's like they're showing you pins of in the size class of everything that's being caught. So now you're seeing regions that are good, creeks that are good, and you're like, okay, this guy caught a 6 pound on this exact pin here, where it's just like it makes it almost like I don't want to say a clean slate because it's not, but it makes you almost go like if you find a needle in a haystack, that thing's done.
Oh, it's toast. It's toast. I mean, there's so I won that college bracket 2016 on Kentucky Lake on a very specific rock pile on a bar, and I'm just now able to start catching fish on that place again. So it's like if you win a major tournament that shows you where you are on Bass Live, it's done. It's toast. So you might as well, for the most part, scrap what you found in the past and just go looking for new stuff. I mean, definitely going to check it just because it's a nature in us, but it's probably not going to be anything like you found it the first time. Yeah.
Well, now that you said that, all 3 listeners that we have are going to go back into your college bracket, find out where that was, and they're going to go find that rock pile and stand for again.
I'll move the rock pile.
Oh, you'll move it?
I moved it myself. That's why I'm able. Yeah, it's not there anymore.
Yeah. You see it as a dive flag on Kentucky Lake and just John's boat right there.
What's that out there?
He's moving it 5 feet to the left.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wish we could do in New York. And part of me, I understand it because they're glacial lakes. They're all natural type of deal. We can't put stuff in it. Even though for whatever reason homeowners can put in weed mats, which makes no sense to me. But there's some days where we have some of these bowls of grass that just have nothing to them. Where I just wish, where it's like every trip, just bring one brick, bring one rock, that sort of deal. Just start making a little deposit here and there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm assuming, growing up where you're at, you can throw brush in, you can do all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them deals where I don't think it's technically legal to put brush in any lake in the country. As far as state by state, I don't know of a state that is legal. But it's one of them deals like if a DNR person sees you dropping brush, I don't think they're gonna write you a ticket because everybody down here puts out man-made brush piles, even the DNR does. But it seems like the further north you go, especially where y'all are at, it's like, dude, don't put a twig in the water or you'll get arrested and never fish again the rest of your life. But down here, there's so many brush piles, it's almost pointless to put one out because so many people do it. Brush piles, crappie mats, rock piles, whatever. People do it every single day down here.
Yeah, I remember first really digging into that whole concept of newer brush piles versus older brush piles when Buddy Gross won on Eufaula, and they were talking about how like the fresh ones that still had green leaves on them still would attract they call them the shell crackers, which That's one thing I still don't know, even traveling south a bunch. Like there's bluegill, brim, shell cracker. Like I don't know what the hell is the difference. It's kind of like the whole 3 different names for crappie. It's like, but that's a whole different side that I absolutely love is where I know the fishing in general is tougher when you go south, but I feel like the diversity of it is so intriguing to me, where obviously you guys love the north just because our fish are dumb as a box of rocks. But I mean, you got to be pretty pumped head to Champlain, dude.
Oh, dude, I'm ready to go. I'm really ready to go up there. I've never been to Champlain a day of my life.
No?
So I'm never been a day of my life. I've
you're
literally watched thousands of hours of people just reel bass in. It's not even Bass Live. It's not Bass Live or MLF Live. It's just Fish Catch Live when they go up there. And I'm ready to experience it.
That's cool, man. I'm pumped for you. It's just cool in regard to the country you'll be in. Like, driving to Champlain, you'll love the Adirondacks, the way it's going to take you to go. It's a special place. It's the one thing that keeps me in New York, to be quite honest with you, is that region there. I mean, obviously their Finger Lakes are great, but are you coming up early to go fun fishing at all? Or are you staying late to go fun fishing? Or
I don't know yet. It's a month away, man. I don't know.
You bringing the fam?
Yeah, it depends on our Airbnb situation. I haven't really dove into it that much. Family's going to come to one of them. Just depending on when they come and how long they stay, probably depends on if I go early or stay later. Hopefully, I have enough fish catching done during the tournament that I don't need to stay later. But who knows? It's hard not to go fun fishing up there while you're there. I tell you what, I have never been fun fishing on Oneida. I've only fished the opens there, and always the first few days of practice the open, the place is unreal. And I would really like to go out there when there's not 150 boats, because when there is 200 boats, it's still fun. I would really like to go when there's not a lot of boats out there. So,
yeah, Oneida's still fishing pretty good right now for the most part. I've heard some rumors of people saying that there's a downswing on it, at least from a bass perspective. The recent studies said that the walleye are just doing absolutely incredible there.
Really?
Yeah, like the walleye, I think they increased the limit that you can take out of there because
I think it's 8 now. I think it's 8, which is unreal.
I've never seen a place where you can go throw a top water, swim a jig, deep crank, and catch a walleye in every single thing that you do. Like they're on docks. Wow. Like it's just it's crazy. But I mean, none of these lakes you can go wrong with for fun fishing. But I mean, I think simple answer is you go win AOI, and now you got some spending cash, so you can stay a little while and go fish some little cool ponds up there. Because like we were talking with Carl earlier, man, there's very few places in the world right now, really, that you can go fish, and there's nobody at the ramp. That part of the country is one of those places still where you can go up. There's not a house in the lake. There's nobody at the boat ramp, and it's like a 3-4 parking spots for the boat ramp. And the fishing is just ridiculous. It's incredible too, because it's hard for people to go and get up there. So it's fun.
Yeah. I'm fortunate. I had one of my college roommates, Brad Abelman, lives on Black Lake in New York. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of small lakes near Black Lake, and before we had a college bass tournament there, the days of wind blow, we would just go try random small lakes. It had little gravel parking lots, like you were saying, and they're phenomenal, man. Just go throw a frog or flip reeds or whatever you want to do. And just, man, we don't have anything like that down here. And I was listening to what you and Drew were talking about is a spinning rod craze, is that if there was anything great down here, us anglers would ruin it. And that's why you see everybody with a spinning rod in their hand, because the fish are just so dang smart down here. Mm-hmm. It's just to that point. So where you're either using something huge or something real tiny to get a bite now. Yeah, it's nice going up there where the fish have not seen a bait every single day of the year.
Yeah, I can pick up something normal that everybody talks about and catch bass on it. Yeah, I don't have to go crazy JDM or throw these 12-inch glide baits to get any attention.
Yeah, I haven't. It's astonishing how few bass. I don't even think I weighed a fish in on chatterbait this year or spinnerbait. I mean, all year it's just like the normal traditional fishing stuff, especially with the schedule we had, it just doesn't line up that great for our tournaments, you know.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I mean, obviously you're having a great season right now, so I'm sure there's no complaints. But what would you like to see, you know, for next year's schedule? Like, what would you love to see on it or changed about it?
I would love 9 Tennessee River tournaments. That's what I would love. Yeah, put them
all
on
of
there.
them on ledge season.
Yep, all. I would take some in March, couple, 4 in March, 5 during ledge season. But man, I feel bad for the people in Bass's shoes right now that are trying to please all the spectators because, if we're not looking down at a scope, or I'm gonna call it eye scoping. So it's like we're either gonna be bed fishing or looking at our electronics. I don't think that Bass can do a whole lot about that because they're not gonna please everybody. But if they have some kind of schedule, anything like this year, then it's going to be another good year because we've had some really good events. We've had a lot of big fish caught, and if Smith Lake is our worst tournament of the year, man, that was a great tournament. There was a ton of fish caught. I mean, 15 pounds a day of spotted bass almost won that tournament. I mean, you can't beat that hardly anywhere in the country besides Lanier and Hartwell maybe. But it's been a great schedule. I would love to see something similar to we have right now. It's been diverse as it could get, really. I mean, Toledo and Fork, Wheeler. I mean, you've had really prime opportunities to catch them offshore and flipping cypress trees if you choose to. So, if anything like this year, I think they'll hit the nail on the head with it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a very tall task to be the person making the schedule right now because, which sucks for them because the biggest thing is someone's going to be pissed regardless. I love the comment section every time a league announces their schedule, like, oh, nothing in Minnesota. Nothing on the West Coast every year. Like it's inevitable. Like it's just you're gonna have somebody that's like, can't believe you counted out Pennsylvania. Where the hell are we gonna go in freaking Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
there's like 2 lakes in Pennsylvania that you could have a tournament on. It's insane.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hard maybe.
I don't know if there's a big enough fish population to have a tournament there, but yeah, there's only 2 that I know of that have big enough ramps possibly to have like 80 plus boats.
I don't know. Well, I always get excited for the schedule announcements and when you guys
for sure
get to come up here because then my buddies are sending me, pictures like, oh, look at this wrap boat on the highway. Like it's just fun. But
it's just everybody complaining online right now is talking about how much they hate the sport. But it's like every single Bass Live coverage has groundbreaking numbers, more than ever last week at Smith. And Smith was the most forward-facing tournament of the year. And it cracks me up, people saying, I'm not going to watch this again. But they watched the video they just commented on. So, like I said, I'm glad I'm not making the tournament schedule. I'm just glad I'm fishing them, and hopefully they keep putting us on good places and with a grinder or 2 thrown in, and I'll be happy. So,
yeah, it'll probably be like Sabine River or Winyah Bay again. Like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I think
there's your grinder.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing. Like, I doubt, because we only have 3 listeners this whole show, that with Bassmaster, if they were able to hear it, it's don't listen to the loud crowd in the comment sections right now because believe it or not, that is the very, very minority of people because there is a large silent majority that will watch Bass Fishing, Bass Live, regardless of what you guys are doing because they simply, 1, love the sport, 2, love to see a bass caught, 3, love to learn. And there's a hybrid in there, of course, of different people that just simply enjoy it. They might not even fish tournaments. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just can't listen to those 20 some odd comments. And, my biggest thing, dude, that I ended up letting it rip on a comment the other day because I couldn't take it anymore on a guy. And it was nice to see some other people join in on select individual that does nothing for our sport. But if you choose to see negative, if you choose negative, you're gonna see negative. That's straightforward how it's gonna be. Where if anything, like the part that drives me nuts is people don't try to pitch in some sort of solution. They just sit there and complain. Like I hate the whole squeaky wheel gets the grease type of thing, but like it's the whole thing to me where it's just like, just work on being the solution for our sport. If you want something changed, like start trying to drive, a solution for it versus just sitting there and whining the whole time.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. It's like whether it's a fan or an angler, the outspoken is not the ones you need to listen to the majority of the time. It's the 99 that aren't saying anything are the ones that you really need to listen to more. So, like you said, the minority that you hear is not the majority. So,
yep. Yeah, I'm with it, man. I think they just need to stay the course, and especially right now, like there's not enough out there on everything. So I love where the sport is at. I mean, obviously, I don't love like where let's say the community is at. I think people like you guys are doing great for the younger generation coming up through the pro ranks, and you got people like Carl who we had on earlier that was really pushing the positive agenda to try to fight against this small crowd of people that like to embrace negativity for whatever reason. But I think there's a bright future ahead for fishing. I think it's just
I agree.
It's an interesting time of change. That's all that it is. Yep. Well, dude, between now and going up north, what's the plan? What do you got going on at home? You doing some fishing? Like, what's the gig?
A little fishing, a lot of family time with the wife and the baby. A lot of good meals at night, hopefully. And when it's not 95 degrees, might slip off for a few hours, do some scanning, flip some cypress trees on real foot, and just enjoy my break. Take all the long pink worms out of my boat and put little short brown worms in to get ready for New York. So do a little boat flop.
I'm sure you thoroughly enjoy that part of it. A little bit of change of scenery, but that's awesome, dude. Well, Andy, you got anything left for John here?
No, I just want to say safe travels and good luck on the quest for AOY. And what are you leading Rookie of the Year right now too? Do you know, or no? Second?
No,
Trey's
leading it. Yeah,
you're second.
I haven't looked at the standings yet, but go get it done.
Yeah,
best you can.
Shoot for both of them.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, you're only 42 with 2 events left, which can easily be made up.
Yep.
Although Hamner's fishing lights out right now, but I think we've seen anything can happen.
Yeah. 2 top 10s. If I could do what I can do, and if I have good tournaments, and see what happens to the rest of them. So,
God, this top 10 is freaking stacked. Goodness gracious, it's cool. It's crazy to see how many young guys. Like, because I mean, you got Hamner, but you got Trey, Cody, Fouts, yourself, Shakurit, JT, and Wesley rounding out top 10. That's pretty nuts, dude.
As long as I beat Jay Shakurit, my season will be complete as a whole, because me and him have been giving each other a hard time all year. I'm going to call him boss at Strike King, Tom Brubaker, is sending each of us a $50 Culver's gift card for whoever beats each other in the tournaments. So
I love that.
We have a group chat after every tournament. I'll say "suck it, Jay," or he'll say "take that, John." So it's been pretty funny, us going back and forth, and we're neck and neck in points. So I'm hoping I just edge him out, even by 1 point. Will be a success for the season.
As you guys are sitting there arguing, does Tom ever just like put a picture of the Culver's gift card right in the middle of it and be like, "It's up for grabs. Keep going, boys."
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
That's cool, man. I love that. Some little camaraderie. Yeah, that's fun, man. Team within a team. That's cool, bro. Well, man, again, like Andy said, safe travels. Appreciate you always making time for the show, man. Seriously, we appreciate it beyond words. And holler if you do get some time up here. happy to
Yeah,
show you around
sure.
some home ponds and send you some places to go have some fun, beat up on some really dumb fish. So.
Yeah, I'd love
There's
nothing
too
more.
many of those.
That's for dang sure. Well, buddy, appreciate it, and we'll be talking to you real soon.
Yep, sounds good. Thank y'all.
See you, John.
Of course. Have a good night.
There you have it, folks. That wraps up our third and final guest for tonight. What a show.
What a show.
Long one.
Yeah.
Long one,
jeez.
2.5 hours. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. A lot of folks staying tuned in for tonight. So appreciate that. Dude, the future of fishing, I think, in regards to anglers, is in such good hands from people. One, that obviously passion's always there, but I feel like anglers are just getting better, but also getting smarter, and also they're being more outspoken in regards to the fight to keep this sport in a good place. I think the anglers at hand we're in a good spot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I think the only thing that needs improvement is just the foundation of tournament fishing, I should say. Whereas I think, we got people like Stephen Barden, who's fighting the good fight on the conservation side, that keeps fishing in its own right, going down the right path. Because tournament fishing, we talk about it a lot on the show, but it's only like it's the 5% of all fishing,
if that.
Whereas like Steven's fighting for fishing for everybody, the whole 100%. And I think it's in a good spot. I think it's obviously nothing's ever perfect, but as much as people like to shad a storm over the current stage, I think things get blown out of proportion during the social media.
I truly believe it's in the best place it has been probably in a very long time. And very rarely at this point now, because the anglers are getting so good, right? Like very rarely do you see 2 Peters in a year, or guys went it like Cliff, right? It took him 15 years. Bill Lowen was like considered one of the best shallow water anglers of like all time through his generation. It took him 15, 18 years to get a trophy.
Something like that.
Yeah, but in retrospect, like guys aren't winning 2 tournaments a year very often either. Like it's a new winner every week, which I think is kind of cool as well. So it just shows you the expansive amount of talent there is. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see like a dominant tear like KVD went on for that 8-9 year stretch that he was almost unbeatable. Like, I don't know if you'll ever see that again because everybody is just so good now.
Yeah. I feel like it's just literally you got 30 guys in an octagon right now that are just throwing knockout punches left and right. And it's never one person leading. You got to obviously the AOI, but then you see like Welcher. I don't think he's having a terrible season, but
and that's the other thing too. Very rarely it seems like now the guy who wins at AOI wins a tournament. Like, I don't think Kyle won a tournament last year, right?
No.
Or Seth Fider the year before.
He's still in the
didn't
classic,
win one.
but anyway, he's in 35. So it's
still a good year. If you make the classic, that's an amazing year in that group of anglers, and you could be the last guy in and still win the classic because you're there. That should be the goal, is making the classic.
Well, and this year, of all years, we might have the opportunity for the classic champion to also be AOI.
Yeah,
our boy Justin Hamner. Not saying that we're taking any credit for how good he's been fishing, but he always calls the shots on his show. But
I'll have to get him back on here to see what his next shot is.
I say, do we have to get him on here so he can call his shot for AOI, or what are we doing here? But it'd be freaking cool if he did, man, because couldn't have happened to one.
Yeah,
to a better dude. But yeah, there's so many cool different stories here. It's, dude. One other thing I'm still looking at this AOI. Obviously with the season turnaround, we had a recent show with him.
Not even a season turnaround, right?
Yeah,
a career turnaround. Alex Redwine's even having a really good year. Almost got knocked out last year, got in by the skin of his teeth for his 3rd year, and he's having
25th
an incredible
AOI
stretch. Yeah.
But dude, things that I know people give him a lot of credit, especially with smallmouth, and they always get a lot of credit as great anglers, but year after year, I think the most safe bet in all of bass fishing, tournament fishing, is to bet that Chris and Corey Johnson will be in the top 10 AOI.
Yeah, and they're probably like 11 and 4. No, they're both in the top 10. Right
4 and 9. Chris is in 4th. Dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, and now you're going up north. It's like, oh crap! If one of them gets hot up here, they could win both tournaments.
But I think Walters, Hamner, Welcher, all them boys proved. Well, actually, I don't think is the lake open this year.
Oh, they're running from Waddington. It could be open, but that is a haul. Yeah, and I think that like the lake being closed is an even a bigger advantage for the Johnson brothers.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Like they proved last year, like Welcher and Walters and all them, that now because of technology they don't have the advantage. And I've heard the Johnsons on Mercer's podcast talk about exactly that. But like if the lake was off limits, I'd be Johnson's got this on block.
Yeah,
and
they proved it the last time. I think during COVID, like if Corey didn't have like 3 different boats break on him, he was on bigger fish than Chris. And I think that was one of the. Chris won that one, right? No, I think he lost to Micah Frazier. I think that was one I'm thinking.
The one where he came back from 10th?
Yeah, because he just dropped like that ungodly bag on the final day, down by like 8 pounds.
Yeah.
The lake is open. I mean, if they run from Waddington to the lake, they're going to give themselves 2.5 to 3 hours to fish. If they're running way out in the lake, that's woof. And if it's rough,
it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
for dang sure.
And Polnick, the one time he won up there, he ran probably the furthest anybody's run from Waddington to fish to win. So
it's gonna be interesting either way. It's gonna be a fun watch, for the rest of the season. And tonight's show was freaking awesome. From having Carl on in the beginning, talking about the Fear My Heart winners, to having Drew Gill on, impressive kid, and then to I really say kid. He's probably 24, 25.
He's a kid.
And then obviously wrapping up here with our boy John Garrett. So it's appreciate everybody for joining in. And Andy, anything else we got for the folks?
No, I will. Quick side note, real quick. If anybody is looking to come up here and go fishing, basically the only month I have a lot of days left is August. My fall is almost full, and my July has like 4 days left that I can book. So,
dang.
Yeah, if you want to go fishing, you better give us a call or send us a message so we can get you on the calendar. And my spring next year is starting to fill up pretty quick. So, yeah.
Good.
It's a good thing. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Well, folks, appreciate you guys as always tuning into the show. We cannot do it without you, and we thoroughly enjoy it as it is, but we thoroughly enjoy it even more when you guys tune in. But appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.